over 15 years, Saturdays and Illegal Curve have been synonymous with one another. With insight, analysis, and interviews regarding the Winnipeg Jets, the Manitoba Moose, and all around the NHL, here are Dave Manouk, Ezra Ginsburg, and your host, Drew Mindell. The Illegal Curve Hockey Show, presented by Play Now, the official sports betting partner of the Winnipeg Jets, starts now.
And away we go. Good morning, Winnipeg. Good morning, universe. And good morning to everybody joining us live here on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. As you can tell by my voice, it is Dave Manouk. If you're watching, you know it's me. But if you're listening on the podcast, Dave Manouk hosting today's show. Ezzy Ginsburg, my main man, to my right, maybe to your left. And we are going to give you 2 hours of Jets talk this morning, a little bit of hockey talk. There's something called the Stanley Cup Playoffs somehow still being played, Ezzy, 2-2 between the Oilers and the Panthers. That game 4 was insane. And so we'll talk about that a little bit. And our guest today, Christian Aumell from 680 CJOB. He joins us at 9:30. And then Craig Button to give us some draft insight, because in a few weeks, the draft will be here, and that's our favorite time of year. It's our favorite weekend.
Well, not in Winnipeg, but you meant figuratively will be here.
Well, technically, actually, literally as well, because remember, it's a decentralized draft. So the Kevin Cheveldayoff and his brain trust will be actually in Winnipeg. They won't be in Los Angeles at the physical draft. So
I was thinking about that, Dave. Like, we used to go back to the draft. Like, we haven't gone to any NHL drafts in a while. I think 2017 in Chicago was the last one, but
yeah.
I don't like, is it just going to be like a select amount of people? Like, I don't think it's going to be, there's not going to be big representation in LA. I don't think.
No, it's a good question. I'm not certain how it's going to be, because you have to think that there's someone from the team who's going to greet the players that are getting drafted. So there'll have to be some sort of representative, and whether that's someone from the communications department, that's what I would assume.
It just makes sense for Jamie Thomas to be there handing out those jerseys.
Oh, maybe. I mean, could be Jamie. I guess we'll find out. I don't even think the Jets know, because I know there was some internal discussion amongst the media asking.
And by the way, Dave, we should mention that there's already talk about going back to the old format of the draft, right?
It sounds like this is it. Sounds like this is the last year of it, which is probably
funny, right? Because there was all this talk about how the NHL was going to be more like the NFL and Major League Baseball, right? Because their drafts are decentralized, right?
Yeah.
And so it's just funny that it's going to go right back to the old format, which means that possibly we're going to be going to the draft in 2026 again.
Yeah, I mean, I would, it's funny. It's so busy, and it's like the most exhausting. By the end of day 2, I'm just like done. But like it is the best, and we don't know exactly what we're going to do. We'll probably do whether we do a first round show like we usually do, which is, I guess, is it Friday night, and then our usual rounds 2 to 7 coverage. But again, in some capacity, whether it's illegalcurve.com or whether it's here on the Illegal Curve broadcast, we will have you covered, which means, of course, you have to be subscribing. You have to be, have the notification buttons on. You want to know when we are bringing you these broadcasts, especially because we are in our summer mode, right? And you can tell I'm literally at the lake right now, but we are in summer mode. So this allows us to, means even though we're more few and far between than when we have the Illegal Curve post-game show, this way you'll be aware of it. But we should probably start off today's show with the news, the big news of the day. I mean, I can't pretend like it's breaking news, because, some of us have known about this for like weeks, it seems like, because the pictures were leaked of Connor Hellebuyck with 2 trophies. We knew he was going to get the Vezina.
That annoyed me, by the way. Can we talk about that for a second? The leaking of the pictures.
Well,
why leak that and ruin the surprise for everybody?
Well, so it's interesting that you asked that question, because someone sent me that picture, and I just, again, with AI, you don't know what's real, what's not real, and it seemed real, and I was like, okay, and I had that weeks ago, and I was just kind of like, okay, it's interesting, but again, like I said, I just a random person sent it to you, and to be honest with you, I kind of thought, well, why would the NHL take that in a public setting that would allow some random fan to get that picture, if that is in fact accurate, and allow them to, it would just be easy. And then when I saw the actual video that the NHL released, that it was done at Hellebuyck's home and it was private, it obviously means that one of the 10 or 15 people that were present took that picture and sent it. So it's an inside job. It's what I'm getting at, Ezzy. And I'm a little surprised that
it was Chuck Hellebuyck.
And I guess if it was Chuck, then I guess it's okay. But I was a little surprised, definitely, that that it was someone from within obviously his inner circle, his family that sent that out. And probably I'm sure what they did is they just sent it to someone else in the family, and then it
sure.
just
And look, we live in a day and age where everything's public, right? Like people have iPhones and Samsungs and everything. And so we just live in that day and age where things get leaked all the time, right? Like,
right.
I don't know. It kind of reminds me of like, I forget if that was 2021 or 2022. Was it Frank Saravalli was dropping all the draft picks, right?
Yeah.
From the expansion draft.
Yeah. When you mean who Seattle was taking?
Yeah, I think that was Frank Saravalli who had.
It was Frank. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was literally like he had it just before every single one. He would be like, he'd be like, they're taking so-and-so, they're taking Mason Appleton.
Right.
Like,
and I love Frank, but I mean, it's like, if he's going to do that, like, why am I even bothering to watch this? Like, I can just follow Frank on Twitter. Right.
Yeah.
So it's just as an aside, but like, we don't have to spend.
It was 2021.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. The Chaz Lucius year. Right.
Yeah.
So we don't have to talk about it any longer. I just didn't like that it was leaked because I just thought it would have been a good surprise. But look, if there's anybody who's deserving of the Hart Trophy and the Vezina Trophy this year, it's Connor Hellebuyck, right? And we've talked about it a lot this year. He was obviously in the conversation for much of the year. Goalies just don't win the Hart Trophy very often, right? It happens once every 10 years, once every 12 years, right? Carey Price is obviously
five goalies have done it. Hasek twice.
Right. So, I mean, it's an incredible accomplishment. And, the last month or so, we've been spending a lot of time talking about the disappointment of the Jets losing to the Stars in the second round. But this is an individual accomplishment, right? Like, obviously, Connor Hellebuyck is going to be humble and, he's going to thank his team and everything like that. But he really put together one of the most impressive seasons for a goalie of all time, right? So this was well-deserved. And just as an aside, Dave, like, because I know that you've been seeing this stuff on social media, and I imagine you've been talking to people about this around town, like this whole notion that, these awards shouldn't just be regular season awards and they should include the playoffs. Because obviously there's a good chance Leon Draisaitl is going to win the Conn Smythe. Let's be honest, especially if Edmonton wins the Cup. Right. He's got 32 points in 21 games or something like that. Like
like every overtime winner?
Right. Every overtime winner.
Except for the one that Kapanen got.
Right. And obviously Draisaitl finished the second in Hart Trophy voting, right? But people I just think it's ridiculous when people start saying, well, Hellebuyck just won. It's a regular season trophy. It's like, yes, it's a regular season trophy. It always has been a regular season trophy. And so I just think the argument that, Draisaitl, because Draisaitl's had a better playoffs, that should be factored in. It's like, no, guys, this trophy is voted on literally after the regular season ends and has nothing to do with the playoffs, and that's why there's a Conn Smythe trophy for the best player in the playoffs, right? So amazing for Hellebuyck. He's obviously a generational goaltender, Dave. He's going to be in the Hall of Fame, and yes, I am proclaiming him in the Hall of Fame already. I think he's arguably already put together a Hall of Fame career, and he deserves it. And it's the first time a Jet has ever won the Hart Trophy, which is pretty amazing.
It is indeed. I can reveal that one of my number one vote for my voting Ezzy was Connor Hellebuyck. My second place vote actually went to Nathan McKinnon. And then I went Draisaitl. Who did I vote for fourth? I don't remember. Kucherov, maybe? Yeah, Kucherov. And then
Pretty incredible that Kucherov had the season that he had, Dave? And he finishes third.
Yeah, I know. Well, I mean, again, like I said, and actually I went with Quinn Hughes as my fifth vote because I think what he did for Vancouver.
You mean future devil Quinn Hughes?
Exactly. Well, I was anticipating. I wanted to be good for your fandom there, Ezzy. So, and all my votes are available. You can read them on the PHWA website. But that was this was my first year voting for all the awards. I've voted in the past for like things like the Bill Masterton, but this year I got a chance to vote for all the awards and so that I gave Hellebuyck my first place vote on that one. But
well, you mentioned the Bill Masterton. I mean, I don't think I've ever been more happy for someone to win the Masterton than I was this year with Sean Monahan. And then obviously Johnny Gaudreau's wife, she was the one that broke the news, right? So that's one thing. Like, I realize that, Dave, that some people put more stock into awards than other people. Like, some people dismiss them completely and don't think they matter at all. I am not one of those people. I still love, obviously Connor Hellebuyck gets surprised at the lake, right? Like, that was pretty awesome. And look, we've said many times before, right? Banners fly forever, trophies stay forever as well, right? Like, you're always going to be able to say, I won the Vezina Trophy, or I won the Norris Trophy, or whatever. So we could have been having a completely different conversation, Dave M. If Hellebuyck didn't win, we'd be talking about how this was a controversy. And, if Hellebuyck didn't win it this year, then when is a goaltender ever going to win it again, right? So I think the right person won it, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I mean, and it's not a surprise that the Jets were in on amongst,
I'm not sure what happened there. We have lost Dave M. Dave M cut out of the StreamYard studio, so hopefully Dave's going to come back. And he was in the middle of a great point there. So hopefully Dave comes back. Maybe he's having a little bit of technical difficulty. I see him coming in right now. So Dave, I'm not sure what happened there, but
I have no idea. I didn't touch anything. I swear, my hands were.
I didn't either.
I was like, Spency, you are in. You'll be in in case it ends up being the Ezra Ginsburg experience. But I don't know.
I didn't see Spency at the Bombers game. I was at the Bombers game with Richie, former member of Illegal Curve Hockey, and I was there on Thursday night, and Spency and I were texting. I was in the Rum Hut. I didn't see Huss either, and he's the mayor of the Rum Hut. Yes, unfortunately didn't see Spency at the Bombers game, but at the end of the day, the Bombers won, and everybody was happy. But I had a big hug waiting for Spency.
Okay, well, you can hold that hug in abeyance for the next Bomber game for Spency. I'm sure he'll be excited for it. But yeah, I mean, just getting back to this idea of this was a President's Trophy winning Jets team. We knew that they were going to be in the running and in the mix for a number of awards. So it's not a huge surprise that they were able to, garner so much. And whether it was, Josh Morrissey, Scott Arniel, even Kevin Cheveldayoff. But the funniest part is, as I agree with you, I actually like the way they did the presentations, the way and they kind of tricked everybody, right? They're with you mentioned Sean Monahan, the way he got his wife told him that they were doing a photo shoot, and even Hellebuyck, having Eric Comrie come out and say we're missing one of the awards, and then he comes and gives them that one. So yeah, I thought it was pretty cool.
By the way, Comrie is rocking a great stash right now.
Excuse me. Yeah, no, for sure.
Bless you.
Thank you very much. It's it's all this late.
Sorry, Dave, you are so good looking.
Anyway, so yeah, no, it was good the way they did it. And here comes another one. Hold on, you go, Wes.
Okay, as Dave sneezes here, I'm not sure if it's allergies or Dave M is fighting off a cold.
No, I just forgot to take my allergy meds, unfortunately. Okay. So we're off to a great start here. I'm off to a great start.
This is now the antihistamine hockey show.
But anyways, I mean, look, you're absolutely right. I mean, it's a historic thing. Connor Hellebuyck joins a pretty elite list, and Carey Price, Jose Theodore, Dominic Hasek, of course, who did it twice.
Sorry, I have to laugh. Jose Theodore had a great career.
Yeah.
But it's just funny when you put Jose Theodore in the same conversation as Patrick Waugh, Dominic Hasek, Carey Price. I don't think most people would have Jose Theodore in their top 10 goalies of all time, right? But he does have a Hart Trophy, even though, Dave, as you remember, Jerome McGinley should have got it that year.
There you go. That's I did not vote back then, so I cannot take credit for not giving for eliminating McGinley's.
Iggy had 41 goals that year, and that was the year where goal scoring was way down. That was the kind of the dead puck era. I hate calling it that, but that was early 2000s, right?
The chat now has a pro versus antihistamine debate going on, started by Spency. Ken in North Dakota, he's also weighing in on the discussion. But no, I mean, it's something that is that, as you pointed out when you started this, it's rarely been done. We do not see it very often where a goaltender, does what he does. And it's interesting because they had a discussion on the NHL Network where it was Corey Schneider, Mike Johnson, and Mike Rupp. And you'd think Corey Schneider, part of the goalie contingent, would have been in favor, but he actually he thought Draisaitl was more deserving of the Hart, whereas both Mike Rupp and Mike Johnson thought Connor Hellebuyck deserved to win the Hart. So there's a lot of different opinions, different discussion points on that. Craig Button, who we're going to have on at 10:30, he was very much in favor of Connor Hellebuyck. I believe he said he voted for Connor Hellebuyck. So no surprise. Well, we'll talk to Craig about his vote and all those other things. And yeah, I just thought, again,
I wanted to say one thing, Dave.
Sure.
If Draisaitl ended up winning, he would have been deserving as well.
Absolutely.
Right. And that's the thing with these awards. There aren't many awards that are, I would say, blowouts, right? Maybe Cale Makar for the Norris Trophy. As far as I'm concerned, you mentioned Quinn Hughes earlier. Josh Morrissey finishes 4th in voting, right?
Yep.
Victor Hedman was up there. Like, I think all of these defensemen are good, but as far as I'm concerned, it's Cale Makar kind of at the top of the class, and then there's everybody else, right? So there are some awards that are a little bit more lopsided.
Yeah.
But like all of these awards are like, these are the best players in the entire world. Like these are top 3 in every category, right? So it's very hard. Like you could make an argument, like I said, Nikita Kucherov, he had a phenomenal season for Tampa Bay. What did he have? 120 points. I think he was first, right? He won the Art Ross, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Right. So like Kucherov easily could have won the Hart Trophy as well, right? But obviously we're a Jets-based show, and look, Hellebuyck has had some good years in the past. This year was different though, and I think that's why ultimately, like you mentioned, the PHWA, the people spoke, so to speak, right, Dave? Like the Hellebuyck won fair and square, and it's a tremendous honor. And I don't know if it's going to happen again. It's very rare, like we said, for a goalie to win the Hart Trophy and the Vezina Trophy in the same year. Also, the first goalie to ever win the Hart Trophy, Vezina Trophy, and William Jennings Trophy on his own. Mm-hmm. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, no, there's no question about it. And really, it just kind of continues to cement him as, the goalie of this era. Does it not? And it really is just a remarkable story. And so it's interesting because, like you said, as he becomes the first goalie to achieve what you just mentioned. And I mean, think about the milestones, right? His 500th game this season. He got his 300th win this season, 40th shutout this season. So there were a lot of big things. And it really, I guess, Connor Rabchak, of illegalcurve.com wrote an interesting article saying this Hart achievement and his third Vezina cements Connor Hellebuyck is one of the greats of this era. I don't think either one of us would disagree with that headline.
I don't even think it's an argument. Like, how could you argue against that? He's already got 3 Vezinas, as you mentioned, Dave.
Yeah.
He could end up with easily 5 or 6 by the time his career's over.
And let's be realistic. The only thing that Connor Hellebuyck cares about at this point, it's the same as Mark Scheifele. It's the same as, 99.9% of these players, is winning a Stanley Cup. Because, as you mentioned, this is an individual award, even though he would be the first to acknowledge that his teammates, and he did, I think, in his video, talking about how much the team, and he actually talked about the city and how much they meant to him. So I would acknowledge that.
I think it's because of all of those MVP chants that we heard at Canada Life Center, Dave, which obviously turned out to be the correct chant.
Well, when you said the people spoke, the people did in fact speak. So right. I mean, the reality is, and we should also mention that he and Kyle Connor both finished as first team All-Stars. He, of course, in the goalie category.
Kyle Connor I've never really cared about that. I realized, Dave, that
I do Ezzy, because I voted. So yeah.
No, like, see, I'm not going to go on a long rant here, but
sure.
And obviously, like, with illegalcurve.com, we have to, it's news, right? Like, we have to mention it. Yeah. But I've never personally cared. And I'm not talking about this year or last year. I'm talking about, like, since I was a kid. I was always like, okay, great. Like, all-star teams. I mean, there's an all-star game, right?
I remember the cards back in the day. I remember when I was a kid, and it'd be like, oh, first team all-star. Like, you know what I mean? But yeah, I agree with you. It's not.
I like the hologram cards. Remember the year there were holograms? That was before.
That was like the 90s. Was that the 90s? Yeah. Like in the upper deck?
91 upper deck high or something.
Yeah. Yeah. That was appropriate as the upper deck high. So anyways, it was, no, but you're right. It was not something that was super notable, but I just remember being like, okay, you like, again, you're right. It's something that we pay attention to, but from my perspective, again, I think it's just one of those things that is another indication that you're watching a goaltender. And regardless, I mean, again, nobody is going to acknowledge that or disagree, with the idea that you need to get this done in the playoffs, that you need to be elite in the playoffs. That's going to be, you don't want to be known throughout your career as the best NHL regular season goaltender of your generation. You want to be known as the best goaltender of your generation. And you can't do that without, I mean, Vasilevsky won the cup, right? So that allows him to, have that over Connor Hellebuyck. And I know that.
Can I just say one thing though, Dave? Like,
absolutely,
I agree with you. Like, when you talk about the top players on the Jets, or any player on the Jets, to be honest with you, But specifically when you're talking about Hellebuyck or Morrissey, guys that are, the elite of the elite, like Morrissey, we talked about, finished 4th in Norris Trophy voting. But regardless, all these guys, their ultimate goal is to win the Stanley Cup. I agree. But this whole, this is where my mind went, Dave. And that's a scary thing sometimes because I have a beautiful mind.
You do.
But when you talk about like a guy's legacy, like as far as I'm concerned, Hellebuyck will be a Hall of Famer regardless if he wins the Stanley Cup. Like, and I realize people might, in the chat might go off here, but like these two things are separate. And I realize like Hellebuyck's 31, 32 years old. We're already talking about the Hall of Fame. Like that's a good, 8 to 10 years away from him being in the Hall of Fame, right? But I just think like people often bring that argument in, and it's correct. But you could say the same thing for Mark Scheifele's legacy and Kyle Connor's legacy, right? Like these are great offensive players who don't have a Stanley Cup. That's all I'm saying. I mean, I think that it just often sometimes the two arguments get mixed up, if that makes any sense, in terms of, look, the guy had a phenomenal season. He won the Hart and the Vezina. I mean, obviously he wants the Stanley Cup, but not the fact that he hasn't played well in the playoffs, even though I would argue he was pretty good in that Dallas series, right, with 2 shutouts at home. Mm-hmm. So obviously the St. Louis series was a different story, but hopefully that playoff success is going to come with the regular season success.
Yeah, and I should correct myself. Vasilevsky is actually a 2012 draft pick as well, as he. So that's why those two. But of course, he's got the 2 cups. So again, I don't think I'm not making that distinction. I just think that if you listen to what a lot of folks are saying, it just does have that focus right now of Connor Hellebuyck and the playoffs. And look, until the Jets, and it's not just him. I don't put it only on him. Because as you said, it wasn't just, he can't score, right?
Well, I feel like I'm the ultimate Hellebuyck defender, as you know, Dave, because look, there were games in St. Louis in that first round where they didn't play well, right? So it's like, It didn't matter who was in net, and they happened to have the Hart Trophy winner in net, right? So that's all I'm saying. And don't get me wrong, especially on the road in that first round, Hellebuyck struggled. He struggled a little bit on the road against Dallas as well. And there's no doubt that his numbers have been much better during the regular season than the postseason, and he's still got to prove that. But I still don't think I'm going to, single out Connor Hellebuyck as the reason why the Jets didn't go deep in the playoffs, because he at times was excellent, even though his numbers, when you look at his numbers, they don't look great. But a lot of that had to do with those road games in the first round. Those skewed the numbers.
Well, for sure. I mean, he was giving up 4, 5, 6 goals a game, right? So, I mean, like I said, to me, it's more just a function of, again, I'm not trying to, malign him in any way, shape, or form. I just think it's just the reality. But ultimately, at the end of the day, we're talking about him winning a Hart, and it's just something that we don't see very often achieved in a goaltender. Especially, let's be realistic, one in Winnipeg. I mean, that's also something that needs to be celebrated because Winnipeg is often, as everybody who's listening and watching,
little old Winnipeg. We never get nice things, right?
That little engine that could. And Winnipeg's still waiting for their first draft. If folks from the 1.0 era remember, their Jets were supposed to get a draft, and
I don't think that's happening, Dave.
Well, no, a draft is different than a whatchamacallit. But we'll have to wait to see what I think they said. They have to wait till that hotel downtown is finished being built and then has the capacity and all that stuff. So, anyways, we'll see about that. But that's neither here nor there right now. Our focus is, of course, on Jets goaltender Connor Hellebuyck and his winning of the Hart, his 3rd Vezina, and as you said, as the William Jennings becoming the first goaltender to ever win those trio of awards, I should say solo, and it was an impressive campaign. And it just, again, I just like the way they did the video. His agent was there. They're fishing on the boat in Michigan, and sure enough, he gets to celebrate it with his family and his, of course, Chuck Hellebuyck, who's been a guest on this show and is a YouTuber in his own right, making 3D. So
look at this comment from our boy Dom Zappia. Like, for those listening on the podcast, Dom says, one of the greatest goaltending performances ever, best regular season ever as a team. We still complain. Let's celebrate this. Would you rather have the opposite? I agree. That's all I'm saying, right? Like, yes, the Jets, they didn't get the Stanley Cup this year. The goal is the Stanley Cup. Connor Hellebuyck does not have that on his resume, but let's just focus on the regular season for a second here and just really appreciate it for what it is, Dave, like you said, because the Jets 1.0 didn't have Gretzky, or they didn't have Messier. I mean, obviously Howard-Chuck, was our answer to Gretzky and Messier and Mario Lemieux. But I mean, just the fact that history was made this year, first ever President's Trophy, first ever Hart Trophy for a Winnipeg Jet, is just in and of itself is pretty awesome.
Yeah, again, I'm not taking anything away from it. I think it's phenomenal, and I think it's something that needs to be celebrated. It's one of the things that, I mean, Drew made the point. I think we all made the point throughout the course of the year, is that you have to enjoy this ride. I mean, it was a historic season, right? From the 15-1 start to everything we saw from this team. And again, I know that people, look, don't get me wrong. It's all about winning the Stanley Cup. At the bottom line is you always want to win the Stanley Cup every single year. We know how hard it is, but that's the goal. But I'm not a person who's going to throw away, 7 months of hard work and achievement because it, quote, doesn't matter.
That's what I'm saying, right? Like, Dave, every year there's almost always going to be a Hart Trophy winner where we're disappointed that he didn't win the Stanley Cup, right? Only one team wins it, right? So
that's right.
I'm with you. I think, sometimes, and it's probably because the Stanley Cup final is still going on and we're right in the middle of it with Game 5 tonight. But yeah. I just think let's look at this in a vacuum. Like, let's just appreciate what Helly did during the regular season. It was one of the all-time best seasons for a goaltender ever. And let's celebrate it, right? And let's, yes, they didn't win the cup, but like, let's chill on that for a bit.
All right. Well, I can see Christian and his cat, one cat, but there might be more. We'll see. They're ready in the back room. So we're going to head to break. And then when we come back, Christian Aumell of 680 CJOB is going to bring us his insight on the Winnipeg Jets and all things hockey.
And the Sea Bears.
And the Sea Bears. We'll talk about everything here on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show right after these words from our sponsors.
We want to thank you for not betting with Play Now and choosing our illegal gambling site instead.
Because we couldn't afford things like this without your money.
So much of your money.
Now you might have questions like,
do our profits benefit your community?
No.
Or bet with Play Now, Manitoba's local legal and secure gambling site.
Dining, entertainment, parking, and convenience, all in one spot. City Place is located in the heart of downtown Winnipeg, attached to the Canada Life Centre. Whether you're working, living, or out for a night in the downtown, make City Place your go-to destination before or after the fun finds you. Lunchtime, game time, anytime, visit City Place at 333 St. Mary Avenue, next to Canada Life Centre. Holt Dental, the new official dentist of Illegal Curve, has a philosophy rooted in two unyielding principles: genuinely caring about patients and providing outstanding service. Being a patient of Holt Dental means more than just checkups and treatments. It's taking the time to listen and talk to each patient so they can achieve the best long-term health, functionality, and aesthetics for their teeth, mouth, and gums. Conveniently located at Grant Park Festival on Taylor Avenue, Holt Dental is dentistry of the highest quality in a comfortable and relaxed environment. For more information, visit holtdental.ca. Oh, and there's plenty of free parking at the front door, too. Celebrating its 40th year as Winnipeg's home for stand-up comedy, Rumors Restaurant and Comedy Club has recently been named Canada's top comedy club and a top 5 comedy club in North America. From birthday parties to date nights to fundraisers and everything in between, Rumors is your destination for the best and most affordable live entertainment Winnipeg has to offer. For more information on upcoming shows, Rumors' incredible promotions, and to purchase tickets, visit rumorscomedyclub.com.
So you're a pizza person, you married a wing person, but somehow your kids are salad people. You can't pick your fam, but you can pick your BP meal deal, starting from $18.99 for takeout or delivery at bostonpizza.com.
Well, Welcome back to the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. I'm Dave Maduke. He's Ezzy Ginsberg. And our special guest from 680 CJOB, Christian Aumell, here to talk about all things Jets, Bombers, Sea Bears, and...
Is that a tail or a leg there?
That's his leg. He's
Okay.
grooming.
Wow. All right. We've once come back from break, Christian, and Ezzy was doing the exact same thing. So
Yeah, with my leg up.
That's more. Yeah, I think it's more impressive as he doing it than my cat. But yeah, he's just going to be in and around things. I'm home alone right now. The dogs are gone, so it's just me and the cat, which means he's going to be just following me relentlessly, and that means an odd view of part of him grooming. I got the real best seat at the house for it, but we'll just let the rest of our. I mean, if anyone has a cat at home, you know exactly what he's doing right now.
There you go.
So
well, this is the. I'm sure Ezzy's going to come up with a good cat-related pun. It's failing me right now. So let's move right into some hockey talk, Christian. We'll start with, of course, the big news of the week was that Connor Hellebuyck named the Hart Trophy winner. What was your takeaway from him being named the winner of the MVP award?
I thought he was going to get it before the leak. I thought at the end of the season he was going to get it for a couple of reasons. One, you look at the betting markets and someone says, give Kitty belly rubs. I won't. It's a trap. If you rub his belly, your hand's going to get ripped off. Yeah, I look at the betting markets, and Hellebuyck was the favorite. And all season, basically, it was him, McDavid, and Draisaitl were like the three favorites. And then McDavid kind of dropped off a little bit, and Draisaitl was hurt down the stretch a lot, right? So because of that, and because of Edmonton kind of just like waffling into third in the Pacific, I think that's why Hellebuyck gets this. And you saw the voting. It was super close between the two, right? It was not unanimous by any means. It was a real toss-up. So I think, I compare Hellebuyck getting the Hart to some degree to Brady Oliveira winning MOP last year, where for it to not be a quarterback, a couple things have to happen. One, you got to be amazing, but two, there has to be like no quarterback, right? There has to be no great quarterback season. And I think for a goalie to win it, I mean, we've only seen it 5 times in expansion era. Twice it was Hasek. There has to be an awesome goalie performance, but also there's no forward that's just lighting the world on fire.
Right.
And I think the fact that, Kucherov, McKinnon, Draisaitl, they all had great seasons, but none of them were like, oh my God, seasons. It allows voters to say, oh yeah, you know what? This goalie here, the President's Trophy winner, that deserves something. And you could make the argument that there are previous seasons where Hellebuyck maybe actually deserved it more because his team wasn't as good. There's also the year Draisaitl won the Hart. Maybe he shouldn't have won the Hart that year. So, he has one that he didn't deserve, and maybe he should have had this one. But I think Hellebuyck deserves it. I think Hellebuyck had an awesome season. As soon as the regular season ends and the St. Louis series starts, you think, okay, this is probably the Hart Trophy winner. And when he gets the award, all anyone's going to talk about is this, in what happened in the playoffs. And he was a lot better against Dallas. I think the reason they lost against Dallas was not in any way his fault. They just didn't score in Dallas. That's it, really. And if had they lost to St. Louis, totally. God, this would have felt empty, right? If they lose in Game 7, they don't have that crazy comeback. Nemestikov shot just like flies wide and rims out, and they lose. That's, this Hart feels way emptier, but he still got it. It's a regular season award. As hard as it is for us to remove one from the other, it is a regular season award. And in the regular season, Connor Hellebuyck has been the best goalie in the world for many years now, or up there for many years now. It just hasn't matched in the playoffs, and that's not what the Hart Trophy's for.
Yeah, I'm not sure if you were listening earlier, Christian, but
I wasn't.
I was making that point. Fair enough. I was making that point, though, that people are, obviously Draisaitl's got 32 points in the playoffs in 21 games, so he's in the Conn Smythe conversation. But I saw people online, people mad online, as you know. And I just find it funny every year when people complain about it being a regular season award. It's like, that's what it is, right? Like, what if it wasn't, then we could have a different conversation. But that's why there's the Conn Smythe Trophy. So I agree with you. Just looking at it in a vacuum, Hellebuyck has been the best regular season goalie for what? I don't know how many years now. 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, however many years. I mean, there's been some other good goalies, but I wanted to actually transition and get to the the topic that I know that you guys have been talking a lot about on CJOB, and I'm sure you've been talking about it a lot off air. That's the kind of looming Nikolaj Ehlers July 1st deadline, because the closer that we get to July 1st, I think you'd agree that it looks more and more likely that Ehlers is going to sign with another team. I mean, the question I want to ask you, though, is you mentioned, the lack of scoring in the Dallas series, and I agree with you 100%. And I mentioned that to Dave before you came on. Like, I think, people forget how good Hellebuyck was in that second round. It was really the first round that he struggled, but it was the secondary scoring that killed the Jets in that second round. So my question for you is, if Ehlers does end up signing with another team, is priority number one for Chevy to replace Nikolaj Ehlers, or is it still to bring in a second-line center who's going to give you more offense than Nemesnikov?
I think regardless of what happens with Ehlers, 2C has to be the priority. And I think we've said that for years now, that 2C, they've been chasing Paul Stastny 2018 since Paul Stastny 2018, right? They had that brief glimpse into, oh my God, it's amazing when you have two great second-line centers. And they really haven't had that since. It's crazy, right? Kevin Hayes came in. He had decent numbers. It didn't really fit with Paul Maurice. Okay. The next year, it's COVID. It's, they didn't really have, Brian Little could have been that. Then he gets hurt, and then that kind of creates some issues. They've traded for Cody Eakin, which, I mean, he's not a 2C, but they've put in Nemesnikov in that spot. And I mean, just year after year after year, they haven't had a dynamic, legitimate second-line center. And I said it last year before the season, that you can start with Nemesnikov at 2C. You can't finish. You can't win a cup with Nemesnikov as your 2C. And we saw that in the playoffs, right? He's a solid hockey player, but he's got limited offensive ability. And in and around the zone, it was amazing how many times it's just like, oh, it's on his stick, and then it kind of dies, or it needs to be a one-timer, but he has to let it settle, or he has to control it, and then it's too late, right? That kind of play. That just can't happen. So he's a very nice hockey player to have on your team. But they have a lot of nice hockey players to have on your team in the bottom six that they have been asking at times to play above that. And that's not going to win you a Stanley Cup, right? So whether it's Iafallo playing on the top line sparingly, cool for a couple games. He's not a top six player at this point in his career. Nemesnikov's the same thing. The Jets have a decent number of players now in and around 30 plus years old. And you're going to have at some point people that are younger in this, I know the cap's going up, and I know that it's not like the Oilers and Panthers are relying on young kids. They're not, but for the Jets, especially, because Florida has the ability to go out, and this isn't a state tax thing, but they have the ability to be maybe more aggressive than the Jets do, because people don't mind playing there. Whereas the Jets now, are they going to be able to go out and land a top free agent? Probably not, because it's Winnipeg. And if it's generally between A and B is Winnipeg, and A is almost anywhere else, they're probably going to pick A, even though Winnipeg is freaking good. And you have a great chance to win a Stanley Cup because you have the best goalie on the planet in net. It hasn't looked in the playoffs, but 2C has to be the priority. The big problem for me is I don't know who it is, because at the trade deadline, everyone's talking about, they had those $6 million at the good thing Chevy kept that $6 million. It's like, well, Brock Nelson didn't want to come here. That was the only guy. There was no one else on the market that could have done that. That ended up being moved, right? I don't know if Ryan O'Reilly was close to being moved. It doesn't seem like it. He would have been perfect, but that didn't happen. So do you promote from within? Are they going to have to take some bold choices with giving guys a chance? Because they're blocking kids right now coming up from the Moose. They have been for a couple of years now. Billy Hanel is just kind of rotting on the shelf, and it seems like that's kind of done, right? Even though he's still pretty young, but up front, is Brad Lambert going to have a chance now? I know his offensive numbers with the Moose this year, Dave, were not very good, but
nobody's were, though.
No, it was a rough season for the Moose, and so Chibrikov feels like a guy that could slide into the Appleton spot, and then you've got a bunch of guys on the fourth line that could play, but I think 2C's got to be it, and then you kind of go from there. And if Ehlers is signing somewhere else, which it feels like it's hard to imagine him not at this point, honestly, as tough as that is to hear as a Jets fan, I'm sure. I think there's a growing sense of resignation, even though it is a few weeks away still. But generally, if guys stay, they were already locked up, right? The Jets don't let guys get to July 1st and then keep them. That doesn't usually happen. They sign them a year out, 2 years out. They lock them up with time to spare. Didn't do that with Ehlers, and so I probably imagine he's gone, and that's going to hurt this team.
Well, I was going to expand on that one. I mean, Dylan DeMello, I guess, would be the exception to the rule, of course, because they let those guys go and then they re-signed him. But I think that was probably a little bit of a wink, wink, nudge, nudge, because they didn't want to upset the apple cart last year or the year before, well, whatever, last 2 seasons ago. But from your perspective, I mean, I know you've just kind of touched on it. Do you think it's a foregone conclusion that Ehlers is gone? Where are you in the percentage? Like I was 100% thinking he was gone. I thought this was just going to be like he played it out because he didn't talk about it last training when last exit meetings when he left. He didn't talk about it throughout the course of the season, which is his prerogative. He doesn't have to. But anytime the subject came up, he quickly, and deftly deked around it, if you will. And sure, I mean, look, we didn't get a chance to talk to him at the exit meetings, of course, this year because he went quickly to Denmark to play for his country. But from your perspective, Christian, do you think it's a foregone conclusion? Because to me, I know we heard from Kevin Cheveldayoff, and he had that 2-hour meeting with his agent, right, I think 2 days before the exit meetings in Winnipeg. But it just seems like as it gets closer and closer, and I had this discussion online with people saying, well, they don't necessarily think that it's necessarily time related. As it's getting closer to July 1st, that it's getting less and less likely. They think that, that could just be part of the negotiations. And it's true. We don't know, right? The negotiations could be ongoing. So we're speculating that as it gets closer to July 1st, it means that it's less likely that Ehlers is going to stay, but it just as easily could be a negotiating tactic from one side or the other. And maybe they're reaching the number that they want to reach.
I think dealing in absolutes is dangerous. I think to put a 0 or a 100 on it is foolish because we don't know, right? We can get a sense and lean a certain way. And so, is it 50-50? I'd probably put more chips on he's not coming back than he is coming back. But I'm not going to go all in on that. So I just feel like, again, the Jets tend to operate as the Jets operate, right? They don't generally break from their habit of what moves they tend to make, the timing of said deals. The Hellebuyck Scheifele combo deals, that was kind of like the one that we were like, whoa, right? Because it was right when the season started. But they do lock up their guys with time to spare. They don't let them get to free agency. So I think from Ehlers' point of view, I would, if I were to guess, yes, he's gone. And I wouldn't blame him for testing the market for sure, because there are going to be teams out there that could give him more ice time, I think. And a lot of fans of the Jets, followers of the Jets, people that break down what happens on the Jets, look at his production per minute played at 5-on-5. And it's fantastic. Is it possible that he can only play 15 minutes a game for whatever reason? I mean, maybe, but the best production we've seen from this team over the last few years was when Kyle Connor was out, and it was Ehlers with Scheifele and Valardi. That trio was awesome.
Yeah,
I think it was 15-4 in terms of goals. Forget everything else, goals. And all their analytics were great. They played pretty much a month together. Kyle Connor came back, and basically we never saw it again. And I understand Connor and Scheifele being a duo, and they were both really, really good this year. But it's that kind of decision. If you're Ehlers, you're like, he finally gets number 1 power play time this year. And guess what? It was great, right? He finally got the counting stats that are actually going to help him make more money in free agency here. So I reckon there's going to be a team out there that, like, people keep saying Carolina, which I totally get because they're a team that also stops scoring in the playoffs at the worst time, right? And they've been to multiple conference finals in the last few years. The Jets haven't gotten that far. So, yeah, I think he's probably gone. I think that really sucks. I really like him as a player. I think his absence will hurt this team. And it's just a matter of, can someone come up and fill that role? Because, right, they've been basically playing this last season. Their top 6 has had 5 top 6 players in it, right? And that's with Cole Perfetti elevating his game to a top 6 role this year, and then not really having a guy in the middle. that met that standard. So now you've got 4, right? With Connor Scheifele, Valardi, Perfetti, and then what, right? So is it from within? Is it you go get somebody? That's a huge factor for this team. A team that has, they could ice a team today with all the contracts they have right now. They could. I don't think they're not a cup winner, but they could go ice a team, and that so they don't have a ton of cap space from that point of view. But I do think he's gone, and I think that sucks for the Jets.
Yeah, no, I agree with you 100%. I think it's going to be really hard to replace him. And going back to your previous answer, Christian, I agree with you that 2C to me has to be the number one priority. And there's names out there like Matt Duchene, right? I just don't know if a guy like Matt Duchene is going to choose Winnipeg, because it's like we always talk about. Winnipeg has not built their team through free agency. It's been through the draft and trading, right? And it's going to be hard. So I'm with you. We don't know. There's a lot of speculation, a lot of conjecture, but we'll have to wait and see. But if Ehlers does end up leaving, he's going to be missed as your cat comes back into the shot. I wanted to ask you about Gabe Valardi, though, because I was under the impression that maybe Valardi would have already signed, his extension with the Jets. But what are you kind of expecting the contract to look like? Because I think we could also throw in Samberg into this conversation as well. But just sticking with Valardi, like, do you see this being a longer term contract? Because I kind of see this being more like, again, I'm not a betting man, but I kind of see this being more of like a 5 or 6 year deal as opposed to a 7 or 8 year deal. But I could be wrong.
I think Samberg gets the long term. I think they're going to be able to just lock that one down. I can see Valardi being shorter, maybe even shorter than what you said. It could be a bridge. I think they don't want that, but we saw that with Perfetti, who was a bit younger, but not like Velarde's sneaky young, right? Yeah. Kind of feels like he's older than that, but he's not. He's 25, and he had a great year this year. He was finally healthy for pretty much the whole year. Got banged up at the end, but I would, if again, I'm not just pulling this out of my butt to some degree, but I think I have just a hunch that his is shorter and Samberg's is going to be like 6 or 7, and Valardi might be 2 or 3, and then it's going to be a bigger number from there. Because I think if you're Samberg, I think you're settled. This is who you are to some degree, and his offensive counting stats are never going to be big. He's not going to play on the power play, so he's just a great defenseman, great at defending. Valardi is probably, his camp might be thinking, we keep getting number 1 line minutes, we keep getting power play minutes. The cap is going to go up exponentially in 3 years. Do we sign a shorter deal for 3 years, and then when the cap goes boom, we can go boom too? As opposed to doing what the Jets always do and locking guys down for a number that makes you think, oh, and then in 3 years you're thinking, damn, that was a bargain, which could happen. But I mean, I get the sense that one will be a bit shorter.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely makes sense in that regard. Now, here's one that is expected to be short and expected to be with Winnipeg. Jonathan Taves, of course, the 3-time Stanley Cup champion, the captain of the Chicago Blackhawks. We've recently heard that it's down to Colorado, Winnipeg. Who's the third team? Is it Toronto? There was a third team that was kind of down to the mix. I think it's a foregone conclusion he comes to Winnipeg, but we've heard that he's training in Minnesota right now. So now folks in the Wild camp think maybe he'll be there. But I'm not going to talk about him as a 2C, but you've got no Adam Lowry for the first 5 or 6 weeks of the season, or that's at least what we expect. We'll have to see. And then, of course, you're going to have, maybe if you bring in a 2C, Vlad Nemestikov could be moved down. He could also obviously go to the wing. But from your perspective, Christian, with an absence of pedigree on this team, an absence of what it takes to win in the finals, you bring in a guy like
apologies to Luke Shen, obviously.
Well, I'm not saying otherwise, as but he was the first guy that on this team that actually had a Stanley Cup, right? As opposed to anybody else on the Jets. So obviously Colin Miller went with the Vegas Golden Knights to the Stanley Cup Finals, but lost to Washington. From your perspective, Christian, how realistic is it? Do you think that Jonathan Taves still has something at 37 years of old, 37 years of age, hasn't played in 2 years? But, obviously if he's declaring himself ready, he's not doing that. He's not a guy like that who is a Hall of Famer, who's done everything that you can do at the hockey's highest stage, isn't going to embarrass himself. He's not going to put himself back into the game if he doesn't think he's capable, and he doesn't know that he's capable, I should say. So from your perspective, where do you see this kind of ending up, and do you see him as a good fit in Winnipeg?
So there's a few angles to look at with Jonathan Taves. One, the locker room element, the leadership element, I think is valuable to have. I think the Jets 2 years ago, right? Rick Bowness comes in. It's like, we got to fix the locker room, right? And they did, right? The vibes in there so much better now than they were. I don't think bringing in Jonathan Taves upsets the apple cart at all. I think it's great to have someone in there that's won before, who was. I know Luke Schenn has won a cup, but who was a instrumental part of winning those cups. Schenn was a depth player on the Lightning, whereas Taves was the guy who got handed the cup 3 times from Gary Bettman. I think also you look at what, as Dave mentioned, is his makeup. He's not going to come in here if he think he can't do it, right? He's not going to embarrass himself. He's got too much pride. So I think he's so competitive that he's going to want to prove that he still got it, right? He's not going to rest on the laurels of winning a cup, his last cup 10 years ago. It's going to be, hey, I'm Jonathan Taves. And he's probably going to feel some pressure playing in his hometown, right? Whereas, if he's taking the ice in Anaheim, no one cares. He's coming back to his hometown. So I think he probably puts more on his shoulders to be good if he's doing that. But then there's the part of me that says, well, we're just taking his word for it, right? No one has any idea if this guy can still play hockey. It's been 2 years since he's played hockey, period. It's been longer than that since he's played good hockey. Chicago was brutal when he was done. His body was not right. And so we're taking his word that he has gone through the healing journey. It's been well documented. He's taken different paths, and it's been awesome to hear that he's on the right path, because beyond hockey, you just want someone to be able to live their life, because there's a lot more life to live after hockey. But if he can play, awesome. I don't think it's 2C. I think that's a lot to ask for someone who's 37, who hasn't played in 2 years, who hasn't played good hockey in 4 years, and is coming off some pretty big health stuff. But I mean, anything more than that, I think you bring him in. Okay, it's probably not an expensive contract, and if he can give you more, he can prove more. Bonus, you're loving it. But if he can be a 4C, a leader, maybe a 3C if necessary, then I think that's good too. Because it's not like Jonathan Taves' game was built off speed, right? So it's not like, oh, he's slowing down. It's like I look at Ehlers in 4 years. It's like, what's that going to look like? But for Taves, I think his brain is his biggest asset, always was. So I think if he can bring that into Winnipeg, that would be nice. But Jonathan Taves being in Winnipeg is not going to bring them a Stanley Cup, right? I don't think that's going to happen. He's going to bring eyeballs. He's going to bring interests. People might go see him. There's going to be Taves jerseys sold. But it's a depth piece as far as I'm concerned. Locker room piece, yes. Depth piece, sure. It is not a game-breaking move that can lift them over the hump.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that's fair to say that. Christian, we got the draft coming up in 2 weeks. It's hard to believe. I was saying to Dave, like, where did the time go? Like, honestly, like, it's like we're already like in mid-June here. Where do you fall on the Jets possibly moving the first-round pick? And I realize that, every year it seems like we talk about this when the Jets have their first-round pick, that is, because they've obviously traded it away in previous years. But I'm of the belief that it could be more in play than in previous years. And that's for the simple fact that we don't know if Ehlers is coming back, and the Jets still need to acquire a second-line center. And like we talked about, there's guys like Matt Duchene who are out there, but like, is it realistic for the Jets to land a guy like Duchene? Or I've seen even people throw out Sam Bennett, which I think is absolutely ridiculous, because if Bennett doesn't stay in Florida, he's not coming to Winnipeg. I'm sorry. I'm the most proud Winnipegger, but Sam Bennett ain't coming here, and he's probably getting $9.5 to $10 million. But where do you fall on the likelihood that the Jets trade that first-round pick because of what I said? I mean, there's the 2C out there, and there's Chevy potentially needing to replace Ehlers.
Yeah, Duchene's a UFA, so that they're not going to deal for Duchene. It's probably not going to be a sign and trade. He's going to sign somewhere. But I look at Sam Bennett. He's going to get overpaid by someone. It's not going to be Winnipeg. He's a great playoff player. He's like a 50-point player in the regular season on average. So someone's going to give him too much money, and it won't be Winnipeg. But
it's that David Clarkson money coming his way.
Yeah. Someone's going to regret it. I think you're right that the Jets' history of getting guys has been acquisition, right? They pick up Niederreiter, Nemesnikov, etc., and then they retain them after the fact. Not usually, though, at the draft, but it seems like because I don't know if it's because it's decentralized. I don't know if that makes it more or less likely that teams are going to be able to make moves that maybe it makes no impact at all because it's like no one can actually see you on the phone, so no one knows if you're actually wheeling or dealing. I think they try to move it, but they don't move it, I think is where I end up with the Jets. And they're going to use it on someone that we may see in 4 years because it's in the 20s, right? So their history of drafting beyond the top like 12 is pretty spotty for the most part. There have been some hits. There's been a lot of whiffs, but there's been a lot of years where they just literally haven't had that first round pick, right? They kept it this year. And yes, they could use it. I think Chevy does try. It's just a matter of the big question, and this is partially on me for not having done like the legwork yet on it because I kind of going to wait till the season's over, which could be in 3 days.
You're busy, Christian. You're calling Seabears.
I know. Bombers, Seabears, lots going on, but I just don't know who is out there to trade for, right? Who are you going to get with that first plus whatever? Because, I've seen the list of free agent centers. It's not amazing. It's not super spectacular. People posit, what if you offer sheet Marco Rossi? It's like, well, there's a way to use your first round pick, right? An offer sheet. They don't have their second, so they can't have like a mega offer sheet, but I think up to $7 million, and you have to give up a first and a third. So they have that.
As long as it's not more than 5 years.
Yeah. So they could do that, but I get the history of the Jets has been they try and they don't get it, right? When it comes to big swings, right? Just like Brock Nelson this year, right? They tried, they were close, they went to Colorado. So if they start the season without having picked up somebody and they're just going from within, I think a lot of people are going to be pretty upset in Winnipeg. So Chevy's going to try, but trying at this point isn't enough. You have to get it done, and this team's going to be good in the fall, but without a bona fide 2C, I think it's going to be really hard to, in the playoffs, have that kind of depth scoring you need to get the job done.
Well, Christian, we'll let you go on this one, but you mentioned the Jets team and what they're going to look like, and you talk about maybe the difficulty that Kevin Cheval day off every year, July 1st. It's very boring. Usually we're playing floor hockey or basketball or something at Canada Life Center because there's not much going on. You can see the tumbleweeds kind of going by. So if not through that means, and of course you can add some guys who are, like the Jonathan Taves can be signed anytime, of course. But from your perspective, do you see internal options? I mean, you mentioned Nikita Chibrikov. We don't expect Mason Appleton to be back. So from your perspective, what about Elias Salamonson? I mean, obviously the Jets have a ton of D. He's waiver exempt. So there's that obviously that opportunity. He played really well for the Moose this year. One of the lone bright spots, I would say. From your perspective, is there anybody that you're saying, well, here's a guy who could maybe have an impact on this Jets roster next year?
So if you just piece out what the roster could look like, right? Connor Scheifele, Valardi, you could probably write that in pen as the number one line. Number two, you've got Perfetti, and then
the entire number two line is in pencil.
And this is where it comes into question of can someone elevate their game, because Gabriel Valardi and Cole Perfetti were both centers when they were drafted into the NHL. Neither of them are fleet of foot. They are both very smart hockey players, and you wonder, okay, can one of them do that job? And if so, if they can, that is a huge win for the Winnipeg Jets. If they have the answer already inside to be that 2C, because I think when Perfetti was drafted, I think we all thought, okay, in 5 years or whatever, it's going to be Scheifele and then Perfetti as the 1 and 2Cs. And we haven't seen that yet. He had a great year last year. He's starting to get really strong. But can he be the 2C? That's something only he knows, right? Like he has to continue to elevate his game. And if he can, he's still quite young. That would be awesome for this team. I think he's the first option at 2C. I think Valardi would be the second option at 2C if you're just going from within. And then after that, I don't think they have anyone else in-house to be the 2C. I think Lambert wouldn't be ready for that, and I don't think anyone else at the Moose could do that. Barron had a really nice. I think Barron could be a good 2 or 3C for this team. Mm-hmm. I know Lowry had some good analytics with Ehlers and Perfetti in some limited amount of time, but I just think as his career gets longer, I think putting him in the 2C for a long-term run is probably not the answer, as Sully really starts to get into it here. But I think that's where that ends. I think on the, they have so many guys that can fit in on the fourth line, right? Barron could be there. You could have Gustafsson. You've got Nemesnikov. You've got Iafallo. You've got Chibrikov. You've got I don't know if they'd want to keep Tanev or not. I know they liked him and his toughness, but
sorry,
I know.
It's unfortunate the people in the podcast can't see Christian being loved by his cat right now while he's trying to answer these questions.
Yes,
that's more action than I've gotten in the last year.
All right, well, that's your problem, not mine. So on defense, they just have too many guys, right? Like they've got DeMello, Morrissey, and DeMello. I thought took a tiny step back this year. Samberg was awesome. Pionk and Samberg, they gave Pionk the extension. And now you've got like 7 third pairing defensemen, right? I really liked Fleury. He's a UFA. He'll probably go, right? Stanley, I've made no secret about. I don't get it. Like he's still under contract.
Stanley's a Jet for life, Christian.
Yeah, and then Schen's still under contract for a year too. I thought their best third pair was Miller and Fleury, and they just didn't do that, right? So there's no room for Salamonson unless you bump someone else out. And so it's just like what we talked about with Hanel. It's just like what we talked about with Stanley. It's like these young guys are going to have to outperform somebody at training camp. And Hanela could have, and I got hurt a couple times. And so his luck has been terrible. But yeah, there's just not a lot of room at the end, right? Unless you kick some veterans to the curb that have contract, unless you deal those veterans who I don't think have a ton of value on the market. So I think Chevy in that position is like, all right, we got a lot of guys down the lineup. What do we do with them? I don't know. So you can't just press box some like Logan or Luke Schenn for like 45 games, can you? Right? He'll probably just ask for like a buyout at that point or his unconditional release, so he can just go back to hang with his family in Nashville. I don't know, but he's physical and he brought that kind of like, he's won a cup before, but in the playoffs his results were not awesome. And I thought, on the right side, Miller was better on that third pair. So yeah, there's those down the lineup options are kind of where most of the arithmetic lies for this team beyond the 2C role. And if Ehlers goes, now you got a 2-winger as well. You got 2/3 of the second line need to be figured out. But that's what makes sports fun, right? Every offseason, things change and moves happen. And that's why you pay attention on Canada Today. And that's why the TV networks have free agent frenzy shows that probably aren't all that exciting with Twitter that exists now. We could just look it up later, I guess. But I don't watch them. I guess you could tell I don't watch them. But I just go on. I guess I'm dragging this on, but this is the sports. Any show you watch, you can always just look it up later, right? You could not watch the Stanley Cup tonight. Just look up what happened after, and you'd be like, oh, cool, it was that. Or you could watch it for 3 or 4 hours, the whole drag out, let the drama simmer, let it build. What's going to happen? But when it comes to free agency, I'm just like, just let me know.
Well, those were some perfect answers from you and Sully. Hopefully folks picked up my pun, and we appreciate you joining us, Christian, on
we just can't get enough of you, Christian.
Today's Illegal Curve Hockey Show. So we appreciate that. Thanks a lot, Christian. Enjoy the rest of your summer. Sure, we'll talk to you soon, and we will head.
And we'll be listening to you tomorrow. I'll be at the game with my kids.
A plug.
So I'm plugging you. Make sure you listen to Christian and Kelly. Sea Bears versus the Rattlers tomorrow at 2.
That's right. Sea Bears, Rattlers, 2 o'clock, 1:30 p.m. So when our pregame show begins for a Father's Day special, Sea Bears at 3-5 have won 2 in a row. trying to get the good times flowing at Canada Life Center as Sully bites my wrist.
There you go. The Sea Bears is where you'll see Christian Aumell next. They are packing the house.
Actually, might see Christian getting a rabies shot next.
No, he's all up to date in his vaccines.
Don't worry, Christian. I had the same problem as he was biting me, but it's all good. Anyway, thanks a lot for joining us. Have a great call tomorrow of the Sea Bears game. And like I said, there'll be lots of Jets fans, Moose fans, Bombers fans, and Sea Bears fans in attendance at Canada Life. All right, thanks a lot, Christian. We'll talk to you soon.
My pleasure, guys.
There he goes. That's Christian Aumell of 680 CJOB. Christian and Sully, I should say, who were joining us on today's show. All right, as I said, we are going to head to commercial break. And when we come back, Ezzy and I will talk about something else. Maybe we'll talk about Nikolaj Ehlers because we haven't talked about that in a hot minute. What do you think, Ez?
Yeah, I think we definitely need to talk about that guy that might not sign with the Jets and might sign with another team. I have something to say on it when we come back, Dave.
Wow. Okay, excellent. Well, we're going to hear from our sponsors. And when we come back, you'll be hearing from my friend, Ezzy Ginsburg.
We want to thank you for not betting with Play Now and choosing our illegal gambling sites instead.
Because we couldn't afford things like this without your money.
So much of your money.
Now, you might have questions like,
Do our profits benefit your community?
No.
Or bet with Play Now, Manitoba's local legal and secure gambling site.
Dining, entertainment, parking, and convenience, all in one spot. City Place is located in the heart of downtown Winnipeg, attached to the Canada Life Center. Whether you're working, living, or out for a night in the downtown, make City Place your go-to destination before or after the fun finds you. Lunchtime, game time, anytime, visit City Place at 333 St. Mary Avenue, next to Canada Life Center. Holt Dental, the new official dentist of Illegal Curve, has a philosophy rooted in two unyielding principles: genuinely caring about patients and providing outstanding service. Being a patient of Holt Dental means more than just checkups and treatments. It's taking the time to listen and talk to each patient so they can achieve the best long-term health, functionality, and aesthetics for their teeth, mouth, and gums. Conveniently located at Grant Park Festival on Taylor Avenue, Holt Dental is dentistry of the highest quality in a comfortable and relaxed environment. For more information, visit holtdental.ca. Oh, and there's plenty of free parking at the front door, too. Celebrating its 40th year as Winnipeg's home for stand-up comedy, Rumors Restaurant and Comedy Club has recently been named Canada's top comedy club and a top 5 comedy club in North America. From birthday parties to date nights to fundraisers and everything in between, Rumors is your destination for the best and most affordable live entertainment Winnipeg has to offer. For more information on upcoming shows, Rumors' incredible promotions, and to purchase tickets, visit rumorscomedyclub.com.
So you're a pizza person, you married a wing person, but somehow your kids are salad people. You can't pick your fam, but you can pick your BP meal deal, starting from $18.99 for takeout or delivery at bostonpizza.com.
Welcome back to hour number 2. Ezzy, we're already 10 minutes past hour number 2. Went a little long, but that's okay. Having a great chat with Christian Aumell of 680 CJOB on all things Jets. This, of course, is the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Not many of these left in the season, Ezzy. We only have a few more to go before, we've got the draft coverage, of course, extensive draft coverage from the decentralized draft in Los Angeles. We'll, of course, be here in Winnipeg covering it for you. And what else will we have? And then we have the development camp with all the prospects and the kids who the Jets draft. They'll be in Winnipeg for the week after, and then free agency. And then we hit the summer hiatus. But until then,
Dave M starts fishing.
Then I've already started fishing, but I'll be fishing even more, and I'll be disappearing.
Did you catch anything?
No, I was fishing last night in Gimli. I did not catch anything. No, I did not. I got skunked, unfortunately.
Little midnight fishing.
It wasn't quite midnight. It was a little late night fishing, but had a good time and definitely had a good time there. And but I'm not in summer mode. We're still in season mode. People are like, "Oh, you must be enjoying summer." I'm like, "No, we still got season. We're still talking about hockey right now. We'll be summer mode soon enough." So this is the time to transition. Of course, you said you had something to say about Nikolaj Ehlers. I couldn't tell if you were being sarcastic or serious, Ezzy, but I'll give you the floor, and we can definitely discuss Ehlers. And
well, no, I mean, look, Dave, I don't have anything like prophetic to say about Nikolaj Ehlers, but like, I mean, this is what everybody is talking about, right? Like I mentioned, it was at the Bombers game with your cousin Richie, Dave, on Thursday night, and people are coming up to us, and I was wearing the illegal curve hat, the same hat that I'm wearing now, and everybody, that's what people want to talk about, right? Like people are asking me, and I'm sure people have asked you, Dave, over the last week or month about Ehlers, right? And we have guests on every single week talking about this, whether it's Mike McIntyre or Murat or Christian Aumell, and I mean, I think people are holding out hope. Jets fans are holding out hope. Like I personally, look, you mentioned the draft. We were there in Philadelphia in 2014 when Ehlers was drafted. I think it was 9th overall. And I mean, look he's had an amazing career with the Jets. Like he was 3rd on the team in scoring this year. He's played over almost 700 games with the Jets, over 200 goals, over 500 points. Like, I mean, this is a guy who's had, a great tenure with the Jets. And I think it'll be horrible if they're not able to re-sign him, because I think he's going to be really hard to replace, right? Like I think the only way, look, you're only going to replace him either via free agency or via trade, but you're going to have to give something up significantly to get someone to replace him. Like a late first round pick is not going to cut it. So that to me is what I'm the most concerned about. Yes, the Jets do need an upgrade over Vlad Nemesnikov at 2C. Everybody knows that. The Jets tried to get Brock Nelson. They weren't able to. I think Chevy has most likely set his sights on bringing in somebody to be the second line center. But if you don't have Nikolaj Ehlers on your second line, yes, Cole Perfetti is an excellent player, but that's a big, big void there. And I just think it's we haven't been in this situation before where there's a player that has the skill that Nikolaj Ehlers has that could potentially leave for free agency and the Jets get nothing for him. We just haven't seen that before. Like the Jets lock up their core players or they trade their players. Like Andrew Kopp is a guy that comes to mind when he was going to be a pending UFA, right, Dave?
Yep.
The Jets traded him, right? So it's going to be a massive hole to fill if they can't have Ehlers. And just me personally, like, I don't speak for you, Dave, but I mean, he's just such a fun player to watch and he's a fun player to cover, right? Like he's just a classy guy. Like I'm a big fan of Ehlers personally. So I hope personally that the Jets are able to sign him. But the reality is, I mean, he's looking for, the biggest contract of his life, right? Like this is going to be probably, if he doesn't sign with the Jets, a 7-year deal, Dave, or at the very least, you got to think, it's going to be a 5 or 6 year deal. And you're talking about, like he's going to be in the $8.5 million to $9 million a year as Dave M gets a little bit sunned out there. There you go. There you go.
Here we go. There we go.
Yeah, it looked like you might have been walking on the sun there for a second, Dave. But
it's that hot interlake sun I'm experiencing, Ezzy.
Yeah, someone's doing well. But yeah, I mean, it's the big thing right now. It's Ehlers' watch is full on, Dave. We've got 16 days till free agency or 15 days till free agency here, if my math is correct. And we're going to find out soon if Ehlers is going to move on to another team. And it is going to be very weird, by the way. Like if Ehlers goes to Carolina or if he goes to Rangers or whatever, watching him in one of those jerseys is going to be very weird. We'll obviously get used to it. So we'll see. I'm still holding out a little bit of hope, but that's, again, my expert take on this is I have absolutely no idea. I don't think anybody does. The Jets could be close to signing him, or maybe he's already made up his mind. But regardless, I mean, his time in Winnipeg has been excellent. And as I mentioned, he's been fun to watch and he's been fun to cover. And there's nobody really like him. I mean, Ehlers is one of a kind. His combination of speed and skill, like we've seen the goals that he's scored over the years. Like I mentioned, he's got 220 career goals with the Jets. You know, he's going to, whatever team he ends up on, he's going to become an instant fan favorite.
Well, okay, so there's a couple of ways of looking at it. And you know, people talk about the minutes, and to me, if you're chasing minutes, it's because you want first line opportunity, because you want to be able to make first line money. We know that Nikolaj Ehlers is going to make first line money. So if you're on a contending team, don't get me wrong, I would agree with Christian Aumell's take. I thought that when Ehlers was with Scheifele and Valardi, they were fantastic. And if you remember us talking about that 2 seasons ago, Ezzy, we said, well, that's muscle memory, that they'll be able to go, that Rick Bowness at the time will be able to go back to that line because they were so good together for that, 1 month, 5 weeks, whatever it was, time frame. Now, he never did for whatever reason. That was his own prerogative. But the reality was that I just find it interesting to me, at least, that you're saying, well, he needs first line minutes. Well, first line minutes to me.
Well, you have a guy named Kyle Connor there. That's the problem.
But even so, just ignoring that reality. But to me, it's like, well, you want that because you want to be able to get, the first line minutes gets you more points, gets you more money. But if you're making your money, if you've already got your deal right in place, you've got your lifetime 8 times 9, let's say, let's go on that number. If that's the case, if you're Ehlers, do you really care if you're only playing second line minutes? And don't get me wrong, like I would agree that it's somewhat inexplicable that he was playing, less minutes. Like, I mean, Murat talked about it. Was he 9th on the team at 5-on-5?
Well, I'm sorry. That's just mind-boggling.
And again, the only thing I think it's worth pointing out, though, is that Nikolaj Ehlers, I think he's actually probably the least selfish player. He takes the shortest shifts of anybody on the team. He never takes extended shifts.
Yeah, but even with that, Dave, he should be.
No, I know, but I'm just saying he doesn't.
He does. You're right. I mean, I like, my joke was that he's so quick that he gets off quicker than everybody else, right? Like that's why he takes the short shifts, right? But no, you're right. It's something to basically what you're saying is like, as opposed to just looking at the total ice time, you have to look at the shift length.
Right, because I think if you look at it, and again, I don't want to make a statement and then be wrong, but I believe that Ehlers does take, generally speaking.
No, he does. We did look it up.
The shortest shift. So moving away from, but I always think it's interesting because I think if I'm Ehlers, and one of the comments from Friedman, if you remember, and I saw it in the chat, and I'll just reiterate it, was he wants to be in his, like, I don't think Nikolaj Ehlers is in a position where he's like, okay, I want to make $9 million a season. I want to get paid what I'm worth in the current market, but I also want to do it on a really bad team where I'm not going to have a chance to win a Stanley Cup.
That's like, I love Elliot, and I realize that we have to post that on illegalcurve.com, but it's like, yeah, like obviously Elliot, he wants to be on a winner. Like he's 29 years old. He doesn't want to go to Chicago and be on a non-playoff team for the next 4 years.
Nikolaj Ehlers signs with Chicago Blackhawks.
Yeah, no, but like honestly, Dave, that's the last team that I think he would sign with.
Well,
like, I just don't. Yeah. I don't see him signing with like a San Jose or a team like that. Like people are already basically penciling him in on the Carolina Hurricanes roster. And don't get me wrong, it makes sense because the Hurricanes, I think, don't they have like $30 million in cap space? Like
$26 million, I think.
Yeah, like so they have like basically the same as the Jets, right? Like just a little bit more than the Jets. So Carolina makes a lot of sense, and they've had trouble scoring in the playoffs. We just saw that, right? Getting knocked out in the second round, getting knocked out in the conference final. But I mean, regardless, Ehlers is, like you said, he has his numbers suggest he's a first line player. Right. And in Winnipeg, and we don't know because this is something we've been talking about for how many years, Dave? I want to say back to the TSN 1290 days. We were talking about this with Ehlers' usage. And that was obviously, 5 or 6 years ago, it was a different story. But I mean, it is in a way a little ridiculous that he doesn't get, at the very least, top 5 even strength minutes for forward, right? And obviously there's other factors here that we know that, Rick Bowness, Scott Arniel have liked to use the Lowry line in big shutdown roles, right? So I'm still holding out hope that Ehlers is going to sign, Dave. But again, I mean, that's not enough for like, I can't manifest this. You know what I mean? Like I can't make Chevy sign Nikolaj Ehlers. I think Nikolaj Ehlers and his agent have probably at this point, you got to think they've already made up their mind. Like, I don't think they're sitting around right now saying, should we try free agency? I think we've already probably got to that point, right? But we'll have to wait and see. I mean, if Ehlers does sign an extension with the Jets, I imagine it's going to be for 7 or 8 years. And I think there's going to be a lot of Jets fans. If Ehlers doesn't sign with the Jets, there's going to be a lot of sad Jets fans. And they should be, because like I said, Ehlers is a one-of-a-kind player who's had a fantastic run with the Jets.
Yeah, I mean, look, if he signs with the Jets, he's getting his max. He's getting his 8-year deal, I would imagine. But from your, okay, so let's go on the premise, and we'll kind of round this out, and we're going to have Craig Button coming on to talk a little bit of Jets, but mostly Jets potential picks in the 2025 draft with that first rounder late in the first round. But from your perspective, Ezzy, what about a sign and trade? What about the idea of Nikolaj Ehlers trying to help out his current team? If he knows, like, let's say, look, I understand that there's going to be an opportunity for him to be able to go to anywhere he wants in the league and, you know, get the max money, and he can have his pick of, let's say realistically 4 to 6 teams of where he might want to go. If you're Nikolaj Ehlers, because there was talk about this with Mitch Marner, then it sounds like the relationship frosted. We know it's not like that here in Winnipeg. At least we don't believe it is. That, you know, what about the idea of a sign and trade? So you allow the team that you're leaving to at least recoup an asset, and you know, it says, okay, we're going to send him to. I mean, obviously they could trade him without a sign and trade, like the Jets did with Kevin Hayes when they dealt him. But from your perspective, would they? Do you see that as a possibility in this?
And you're probably getting a second-round pick, Dave. I don't think you're getting a first-round pick.
Yeah, and you're facilitating that team getting an 8th year out of Ehlers.
Yeah, you're facilitating that team getting that 8th year, and you're facilitating that team not having to fight off all other teams in free agency, right?
Exactly.
So, yeah, I like that idea. I mean, at the end of the day, Dave, it's better to get something for Ehlers as opposed to nothing. And that's what I'm the most concerned about. And again, Ehlers could sign, and my fears could be for naught, right? But if the Jets end up losing Nikolaj Ehlers, third overall on the team in scoring last year, arguably the most impactful forward, or at the very least a top 3 impactful forward on the team. I mean, if you get nothing, then it's going to be devastating, because I just don't know, who do the Jets bring in? You're never going to replace Ehlers with anybody, because there just isn't anybody out there like Ehlers. Right. But like, whether it's, you know, Brock Besser or what other wingers are out there? Like, I don't know. Like, I mean, obviously the Jets aren't going to be in on Mitch Marner. No. But, you know, so it's going to be tough to replace Ehlers. So, you know, you asked about the draft pick, though. Like, yeah, if you can get that draft pick, and I could see that happening, by the way, Dave, if Ehlers and the Jets aren't going to agree on a contract and Ehlers is going to go elsewhere, I could absolutely see the Jets doing it. We haven't seen them do it, like you said, aside from Kevin Hayes. I think that was the only time, right, in 2.0 history where the Jets have done that, if I'm not mistaken. Or at the very least, they haven't done it a lot. I can't remember them doing it aside from the Kevin Hayes year, which was, what was that, 5 or 6 years ago now, which is crazy to think. But it's always better to get something than obviously losing Ehlers for nothing.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And like I said, it's going to be an interesting one, and we've got a couple more weeks to see what's going to happen. And I would never say never say never. Right? We don't know what is going on in terms of the negotiation and whether the conversations are ongoing between the two camps. And I mean, I saw the comment in the chat, and it's entirely possible that Nikolaj Ehlers is waiting, you know, to see all the offers. I mean, Winnipeg could be one of the teams he's still considering, right? We don't know, because he hasn't put it out there, and they've been pretty quiet, right? Like, you know, you get the odd drib and drab coming out from the insiders in quotes. But ultimately, from my perspective, Ezzy, we haven't really seen it. But I agree with you. Like, when I look at potential replacements for Nikolaj Ehlers, at least internal, I don't see it. I know that Brad Lambert obviously moved this year. He was playing center last year.
But the thing is, sorry to cut in, Dave, but the thing is, Brad Lambert's a great prospect, but that's exactly what he is. He's a prospect. Is he ready to play in the NHL? I mean, you would know that better than I would. I would probably imagine that he's ready to play in the NHL. But again, Nikolaj Ehlers, you're talking about a regular 25 to 30 goal guy, a regular 60 to 65 point guy, has obviously a huge impact on the power play. You just don't; those guys just don't grow on trees, right? So yeah, could Brad Lambert step in and, you know, pop in 30 to 40 points? I could see him doing that. But again, you're talking about a guy who put up 62 points this year, or whatever he had this year.
64, I think, maybe
63, right? So again, it's not just the points. It's, you know, we always talk about, you know, he's the one-man zone entry and just his impact on the game. Like he's a possession darling. He's an analytical darling, so to speak, right, Dave?
Well, just imagine not having him on power play one.
Exactly, right?
I
He
mean,
makes them so much more dangerous.
I mean, your power play went from awful 2 years ago or middling, I should say, to the top power play in the NHL. And you have to think part of that was because of what Nikolaj Ehlers can do. So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be fascinating. We're going to be here for it with everyone. We'll either be covering the Jets signing him, or if they don't sign him and he goes somewhere else, as I was talking about in the chat, I expect the Jets to announce either an extension of Kyle Connor or an extension of Adam Lowry on July 1st, because you can put that one. I'll give a Ginsberg guarantee. I think
those guys are signing extensions.
I don't know for sure if it's going to be both. My inclination is actually to believe it's going to be Adam Lowry, the captain. I believe he's going to get an extension, a 4-year extension, maybe 5 years. But that would be my guess, is that Lowry gets an extension on July 1st if the Jets have nothing else to.
Well, I think the reason why it's going to be Lowry first is because it's going to take a few supercomputers to add up all the money that Kyle Connor is going to get. So.
Well, after I voted him to be a first-team All-Star, I mean, we made him all sorts of money. Okay, we'll head to break. That way we don't keep Craig waiting. And when we come back, Craig Button of TSN to join us to talk about the draft. This is the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. I'm Dave Minuk. He's Ezzy Ginsberg. We'll be right back after these words from our sponsors.
We want to thank you for not betting with Play Now and choosing our illegal gambling sites instead.
Because we couldn't afford things like this without your money.
So much of your money.
Now you might have questions like,
Do our profits benefit your community?
No.
Or bet with Play Now, Manitoba's local legal and secure gambling site.
Dining, entertainment, parking, and convenience, all in one spot. City Place is located in the heart of downtown Winnipeg, attached to the Canada Life Centre. Whether you're working, living, or out for a night in the downtown, make City Place your go-to destination before or after the fun finds you. Lunchtime, game time, anytime, visit City Place at 333 St. Mary Avenue, next to Canada Life Centre. Holt Dental, the new official dentist of Illegal Curve, has a philosophy rooted in 2 unyielding principles: genuinely caring about patients and providing outstanding service. Being a patient of Holt Dental means more than just checkups and treatments. It's taking the time to listen and talk to each patient so they can achieve the best long-term health, functionality, and aesthetics for their teeth, mouth, and gums. Conveniently located at Grant Park Festival on Taylor Avenue, Holt Dental is dentistry of the highest quality in a comfortable and relaxed environment. For more information, visit holtdental.ca. Oh, and there's plenty of free parking at the front door, too. Celebrating its 40th year as Winnipeg's home for stand-up comedy, Rumors Restaurant and Comedy Club has recently been named Canada's top comedy club and a top 5 comedy club in North America. From birthday parties to date nights to fundraisers and everything in between, Rumors is your destination for the best and most affordable live entertainment Winnipeg has to offer. For more information on upcoming shows, Rumors' incredible promotions, and to purchase tickets, visit rumorscomedyclub.com.
So you're a pizza person, you married a wing person, but somehow your kids are salad people. You can't pick your fam, but you can pick your BP meal deal. Starting from $18.99 for takeout or delivery at bostonpizza.com.
Welcome back to the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Dave Minuk, Ezzy Ginsberg. I've had to move to get out of the sun, so I've changed my angle a little bit, so I'm a little less sunburnt. But we're going to bring someone in who might have a suntan. I'm not sure yet. Craig Button of TSN. Craig, how are you?
I am great, actually. And I'll tell you what, I don't know. I know in the playoffs, you got to keep the ice cold, but this rink in Edmonton is freezing. I wore my parka for game 2, and I brought it back for game 5. I literally a parka that's good for -30. That's how cold it is in the arena. So as you can see, there's no suntan going on here, Dave.
Well, Gene Principe, I guess, has the tan for everybody. The way he's he's pulled it in for everyone.
I think he used some type of sun oiling treatment or something that made
some
his
bronzing enhancer, Craig.
Oh yeah, I think it was Ezra. Like, I mean, there was something that happened there, and I laughed the way he said, "Well, I was out in the sun." Yeah, we saw.
Well, Craig, let's just we want to talk about the draft, and we're going to talk some Jets with you, but maybe let's talk about the Stanley Cup playoffs, because they've just been phenomenal. The atmosphere in Edmonton is incredible. We talk about Winnipeg Jets fans and how incredible they are, but the Moss Pit and everything that's going on in Edmonton, how much are you enjoying these Stanley Cup playoffs?
Yeah, I think immensely would be the word I would use. It's one thing to be to watch the Stanley Cup final, but to see the fierce competitive level that these two teams and the individuals are playing at is really impressive. And, they know now they can see the light at the end of the tunnel. 2 games for sure, maybe a maximum of 3. And, we hear the term, lay it all out on the line, leave it all out there, give it everything you got. I don't know if there's any other terms you could use to describe what these two teams are doing. And, it doesn't matter. It doesn't really matter, where the game is at or where the series is at. You can count on these different flips of play where one team looks dominant and the other team looks dominant. And I think that speaks to, people say, well, why can't the Florida Panthers hang on to a lead? Why can't the Edmonton Oilers start out a little bit better? Well, the other team has a big say in that. And so you adjust, you adapt, and then you understand, okay, how do we get our game going? Connor McDavid, you hear players say it all the time. We didn't get to our game, or we did get to our game, right? Or we got to our structure, whatever it is. Well, when there's another team resisting you and another team trying to apply force and pressure on you, it becomes a little bit harder to do exactly what you want to do. So you got to adapt a little bit. And that old saying, bend but don't break, I think applies to both these teams in this final series.
Absolutely. And Craig, Dave mentioned we want to talk to you about the 2025 NHL draft, because the Jets, as you know, have pick number 28. And it seems like we haven't really been spending as much time on the NHL draft as maybe in previous years, but that's obviously because the Jets almost got to the conference final. But I think it's probably safe to say the Jets won't be getting Matthew Schaefer with pick 28.
Well, I mean, who knows? Players drop, and I can tell you what Kevin Shovel-Dayoff would say if he does get to 28. We can't believe he was there. We had him rated a lot higher on our list. Like,
I still remember in 2015 when we were in Florida and we were with Huss and Gary, obviously before he moved on for the Vegas Golden Knights, and I remember how excited you were that the Jets got Kyle Connor where they got him, and obviously that has turned out to be a pretty good pick. And there were, there's some other players too that the Jets have gotten, as you'd agree, Connor Hellebuyck, namely in the 5th round back in 2012. That's worked out pretty well. But we wanted to just to start asking you about some certain players. And obviously, we have you on every year to preview the NHL draft. And we always have to mention that your Craigslist rankings aren't where you think the player is going to go. That's where you have the players personally ranked. And obviously there's a bunch of different rankings, but your rankings are the only ones we care about, Craig. So 28th overall, you have Sasha Boumedienne. And I'm old enough to remember when his dad played for the New Jersey Devils, Joseph Boumedienne. Obviously, again, it doesn't mean that the Jets are going to pick him. That's just where you have him ranked. But what can you tell us about Sasha Boumedienne, Swedish defenseman?
Before I get to Sasha, let me just get, we're going to do a mock draft on June 25th, which I have so much fun doing it. And really what I try to do is just say, okay, who could be a nice fit, based on, like obviously I'm not going to have Matthew Schaefer going to the Winnipeg Jets at 28. He's going to be in the number 1 slot. But, and I like to have some fun with it. And it's funny, I get comments like this. Well, you don't know how it's going to go. And I go, yeah, I do. I don't know. You're exactly right. I don't know. And the NHL teams don't know what they're going to do. The team at 5 doesn't know what they're going to do. They have to wait to see how things unfold in front of them. Now, obviously, as you get deeper in the draft, there's a lot more of the unpredictability. But the teams do a great job of, identifying a group of players that might fit into a certain range of their draft. And this allows me to just kind of sing the praises of the Winnipeg Jets drafting and development. I don't think anybody does a better job in the National Hockey League than the Winnipeg Jets. There's teams that are that are as good. There's some teams that are close, but from 2011 till now, they just do a phenomenal job. I mean, you talk about Connor Hellebuyck, I mean, who just won the Hart Trophy. Kyle Connor, first team All-Star left wing. Adam Lowry, the captain, the heartbeat of your team. Josh Morrissey, what was he, 13, I believe? I think he was number 13.
Fourth in Norris voting.
Yeah. You got Nikolaj Ehlers, right? Like, and you think about where they get players and how patient they are in developing them and whatnot. I think they do a fantastic job. And I think the biggest thing is that I think is a real hallmark of success and a key to success is know what you're looking for and what fits your organization and go and get it, and then be patient with it. You don't have to worry about what other people are saying. You just got to be true to yourself. And the Jets do a phenomenal job of really working to mine as much information to find the players that fit what they're trying to do. So now, as you asked me about Sasha, I've watched Sasha for a long time now. And, he was a player that was always playing a little bit ahead of himself, playing up an age group and whatnot. It was no different this year going to Boston University and playing in the NCAA. In some ways, I think it really helped Sasha Boumedienne to play at BU. You're playing against older competition. He's such a superb skater. Like, he's a great skater. And I think when you're younger and you're a little bit better than everybody, you use your skating a lot of times to an advantage, but you also know you can use it to make up for mistakes. But when you're playing against older competition in the NCAA, you got to be a lot smarter with your skating. And I think Sasha really took that and really became a much better rounded defender and much better rounded defenseman. His skating is no less phenomenal. Now, on the flip side, you can say, well, what about his points? Well, it's hard to get points as a 17-year-old defenseman in the NCAA. So, if he wanted to go chase that, he would have stayed in junior and done that. But I think that people can look at Sasha and say, well, what about the points? I think in time, look what he did at the U18. I mean, at the U18, he was lights out great. Like, he was lights out great. And the points are there. I think that Sasha Boumedienne will not be there at 28 when the Winnipeg Jets pick. I don't think he'll be there. I think he's going to go earlier than that. And I mean, could he go in the top half of the first round? He could, but I probably see him in that 18 to 24 range. And I just don't know where you find defensemen like that. And if you've watched his progress, there's been significant progress in his game. And we think about defensemen that can beat pressure and get the puck up the ice, either by their skating or with their passing. Sasha checks a lot of boxes, and he can play big minutes too. And I think that becomes a real factor, for teams and for defensemen that I clearly see him as a top 3 defenseman in the NHL.
Craig, Jets fans are always lamenting that there's not enough WHL in the system. And, when you look at guys like Adam Lowry or Josh Morrissey, we've got, of course, Braden Yager coming into the system next year with the Moose. From your perspective, a guy like Carter Bear, he's a Manitoba kid, so that checks a second box as a Manitoban. But what can you say about him? You have him projected 24th overall.
Yeah, he's going to go a lot higher than that. And actually, I have a final ranking coming out on Monday, and Carter's higher than that. And again, it's a pipe dream for the Winnipeg Jets to get Carter Barrett at 28. So, no, that doesn't mean they can't go try to be aggressive and trade up to get a player. Carter is one of those what I would call one of those hungry goal scorers, one of those hungry offensive players. He plays inside the dots. He plays to the net. He finds a way to get there. He scores in different ways. He can score off the cycle. He can score off the forecheck. He can score off the rush. He can score by getting open. He can score by battling in front of the net. And you watch over the course of 2.5 years, and you just watch somebody that is just continuously taken steps forward in his game. And I think for so many young players, they're good, they're talented, and then they find, well, wait a sec, I can do more. And then they do more. And I think that's exactly what Carter has done. You put him with a really good offensive player, smart offensive players. He knows how to get open. He knows how to take advantage of it. He's going to find a way to produce offensively in the National Hockey League. So, while the Manitoba roots and the WHL pedigree certainly fit for the Winnipeg Jets. Unless they're trading up, they're not getting Carter Bear.
Greg, the next guy I wanted to ask you, and I know there's a lot of Jets fans that have, that they're looking at your rankings and they're trying to say, we want this player, we want that player. One of the guys whose name I've seen a lot is Ben Kindle. And as you mentioned, you're coming out with rankings on Monday. So these are based on your May rankings. So Ben Kindle might have gone up, but he's number 27 on your May Craigslist. So he's right around where the Jets are selecting. And he obviously had an incredible year with the Calgary Hitmen. Got his hockey DB up right now, 99 points in 65 games. What can you tell us about his game and his upside for the NHL?
Well, you think about the Winnipeg Jets and think about how they have different players that can play in different spots in your lineup and do it well. Ben Kindle, like one of the things that I love about Ben is I call it lineup flex. He can flex through different areas of your lineup. He can play center, he can play wing, he can play left wing, he can play right wing, he can kill penalties, he can play on the power play. And he's going to need more time rather than less time to just physically develop. Oh, yeah. Well, that's one of the great things that the Winnipeg Jets do. They let you get ready for the next steps. But Ben is smart. He's quick. He's fast. He's competitive. He's not anywhere near his physical maturity right now at this point in time. And when I watch Ben play and I see he conjures up images for me of Zach Hyman. He's not as big and thick as Zach Hyman right now, but I think that style of play where the forechecking, the grind on the boards, adding offense, playing with smart players, and the fact that he can do so many different things for a team and play in so many different spots in your lineup, I think that's really, really valuable. And certainly, I think Ben would be in that area of the draft, and he might go a little bit earlier. One of the things that happens, and I don't think it's right, is we watch the Stanley Cup playoffs right before the draft. And, we look at, oh, God, it's a grind, and it is. And you look at the players, oh, you need size, and you need some weight and everything. These are still 17 and 18-year-old kids. Mm-hmm. And, just because Ben Kindle is what his bio is now at his weight and height and everything, doesn't mean that's what he's going to be at 21. In fact, he's going to be bigger and stronger at 21. But players like this kind of get, I don't want to say knocked down. That doesn't sound right, but they kind of get passed over a little bit by some teams. And I don't think it's right. I think that's being too nearsighted and not projecting. And I think Ben's going to be a really good NHL player. I think he's, I hear lots, Ezra, oh, this isn't a good draft. And I just say, no, I'm not buying that. I see lots of good players well into the second round, well, even into the 60s. And yeah, we know that there's players that are going to emerge from there. They're going to be good, but I see some really good players and some really good depth in this draft, and I think Ben Kindle is a great example of that.
Well, Craig, the Jets haven't taken a player from Michigan State since 2015, actually, as you mentioned that draft when they drafted Mason Appleton in the 6th round. Might they be going back there with Riker Lee, who is committed to Michigan State for next season?
I love Riker Lee. And when I watch Riker play, I see a player a lot like Blake Coleman. Now, you guys can ask yourself, I'll ask you the question, you can answer. Does Blake Coleman fit what the Winnipeg Jets are all about?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, that to me is Riker. Riker is somebody that can score 20 goals, but he's going to create a lot of offense through his energy, through his effort. He's a good skater. His skating is only going to get that much better. Adam Nightingale is a phenomenal coach at Michigan State. So you also know that the player going there is going to get better, and he's going to develop along the path to get himself ready for an NHL career. And when I watch Riker over the years, you just, again, he's another one that just, you watch, you see these things, and then you see a player just, when you go to bake a cake, you got to add some sugar, and you got to add some flour, and you got to add some yeast, and and the baking powder, and then you put in the ingredients, whatever you want, right? Well, that to me is what Riker Lee is. He's added these ingredients, and now you're seeing this. Now you take the batter and you put it in the oven, and now he'll bake and he'll grow. But I think he's going to be a real tasty player for whatever team ends up getting him in the National Hockey League.
You're making me really want to have some of your cake, Craig. in addition to learning more about these prospects,
I try to use different analogies, Ezra. That some of them are apropos. Some of them might be a little bit out there. But hey,
no. That one, Craig, was right up our alley for sure. Another guy I wanted to ask you about, and again, I'll mention that Craig has more ranking. His most recent rankings are going to be coming on Monday. But right now, I'm going on your.
Can I just add
ranking.
one thing to you, Ezra?
Sure. Yep.
They're not going to change that much. Just it's
Sure.
little adjustments here and there. I just want you're not going to see. There was only one big change, and I'll share it with you here for me. And I kept evaluating and I kept watching. And I kept sitting down and I'm writing notes on them and doing analysis for what we're going to do. And that was Jack Ivankovic, the goaltender from the Brampton Steelheads. And I just kept saying, like, wait a sec, I can't keep comparing somebody to Dustin Wolf. I can't keep calling a guy a number one goaltender and sit back. And if I'm going to project it, I got to put a stake in the ground. And so that's the only guy you're going to see. I think he moved from 24, maybe 25, right up to he's 12. I got him 12 on my list now. And I don't think he'll go in the first round, but I'm projecting him.
Right. And I mean, I've watched him play a little bit in the OHL, and he's a fantastic goaltender. And I feel like you would agree, Craig. Every year we're kind of talking about those goaltenders. They never get into the top 5, but sometimes they sneak into the kind of 10 to 15 range, right? But the one guy I wanted to ask you about, and there's a Winnipeg Jets connection here, is Lyndon Lakovic. He's obviously a guy that, we talk about the WHL. We follow these guys a little bit closer. He missed some time this year. But he had a really impressive season, and he played with Braden Yager with the Moose Jaw Warriors before Braden was traded. I mean, again, it's tough to say because, like you said, Craig, the NHL teams themselves don't know how the chips are going to fall. But you had him ranked number 25, so I mean, he is in the ballpark for where the Jets are picking. But do you see him, first of all, falling to the Jets at 28? And what do you like most about this player?
I don't think he'll fall. I think he'll be drafted higher than that. And I think that if they want to get him, you're going to have to trade up. And much like Ben Kindle, people say, oh, 25. Well, there's really good players in this draft, in my view. And Linden's one of them. You look at a list and you look at a group of players and you're going to have your preferences. You're going to say, okay, if we have a choice of these 4 guys, this is 1, this is 2, this is 3, this is 4. Now the third guy might be gone, so that just pushes the 4th guy up. However you're confronted with it. I think Lyndon Lakovic would be an ideal pick for the Winnipeg Jets because he's big, he's strong, he's skilled. And I think, and he can play on the wall, and he can play at the net, and he can impose himself. He's a good skater. He's got that physical edge to him. And I think that when you look, and so now he becomes the flip side of watching the NHL playoffs and going, that's a guy who's already 6'4" and already plays a certain style of game. And I think when I look at the Winnipeg Jets and you look at, you're always trying to build out your team to be as strong as possible. But I really believe that Lyndon would be a really nice fit. And maybe ideal is a little bit hyperbole, but you look at a player that with what his assets are, and he's a really good skater, really good shot, plays in the tight areas, again, he's tough to handle. He's tough to handle when he and as he gets stronger, he's only going to be that much tougher to handle. So I think that Lyndon, as a player, if the Winnipeg Jets identify him as a guy they want to go after, I think they're absolutely going to have to trade up to try to find a way to get him.
Okay, Craig, I'm probably going to butcher his name, but Jack Murtaugh, he's committed to Boston University, I believe, for next season. What can you tell Jets fans about him? You had him projected, I believe, 32nd overall.
Yeah, Jack's a really focused goal scorer. Like he's somebody that he's deceptive, Dave. Like he doesn't look like he's going fast and he's by you. He doesn't look like he's quick and he's into the spot. And he scores in a lot of different ways. He can score with a shot. He can score on the rush. He's got really good hands in tight and ability to score in tight. And he's got that real hungry desire to score. Like he's a guy that wants to take the puck to the net and get the puck in and around the net and make it hard on defenders. He's going to force defenders to defend against him. It's not like, oh, we'll just push him to the outside. He's coming inside. He's coming at you. And those qualities that he has of goal scoring, but he doesn't give you the same look all the time. So and he's smart with respect to, he might give you that little burst of speed, and now the next time you're going, I better guard against this, and then he's got such a good shot. Now you're giving him space to get the shot off. Mm-hmm. So he creates multiple points of attack. He becomes a multiple threat because he can score in a lot of different ways. And again, a hungry goal scorer. He's hungry. He's hard. And If goal scoring was easy, everybody would do it. It's hard to score in this league. And I think Jack is a player that's got the will and the determination to get in there and pay a price to score.
Craig, we have one more guy that we want to ask you about for the 2025 draft. Then I think Dave might have a Jacob Julian question for you, because I think Dave might be the president of the Jacob Julian, unofficial president of the Jacob Julian fan club. Obviously, Julian just winning the Memorial Cup with the London Knights. But I wanted to ask you about Theo Stockselius, because in addition to the fact that he's got one of the coolest names that I've ever seen, he's ranked number 31 on your list. He's a Swedish center, just another guy. I think that's in the ballpark for the Jets with pick number 28. But what can you tell us about Stockselius's game?
I'm not hesitant. I love him. I like, that's a projection. I look at him and I see where he is. He needs lots of physical development and physical maturity, and I think it'll come. He's long, he's lanky, he can skate, and he's smart. He's a smart player, and as you develop your game and you start to get bigger pieces of the game, and bigger pieces of situations in the game, you can see confidence building. And I think as he continues along that path, he's going to be somebody that's going to become an even better contributor. Like when I watch him play, I see a lot of what Anton Lundell does. Now, Lundell went 15 or whatever he went in the draft, and I'm saying type of player, but when I watch Theo play, he can play the whole game. He's a good two-way player. He's a good offensive player, and he's in the mix. He's in the battle. He's in the hunt. He's no fun to play against. And as a player, a young guy like him gets a little bit stronger, and now he's going to be even that much harder, because he doesn't go away. He's got a tenacity to him. He's got a determination to him. And when you combine good, solid skills and really high-end IQ, I think he's a player. And again, you start talking about a player that I think can be could be as good as a second line center. I keep going back to, where do you find, Braden Yager is a really good player. You can never have enough really good centers. And, the Florida Panthers drafted Lundell. He's a great third line center. Could he be a second line center? Yeah, but there's nothing wrong with having a great third line center either. And I think Theo has a lot of, I call it room to improve. And I think his room to improve is significant.
Well, we have a lot of room to improve on this show every year, Craig, but we always appreciate your time and your insight, especially ahead of the draft. We obviously always appreciate you joining us during the Jet season as well to share that. But just before I get to the Jacob Julian question, which, as he mentioned, I do have a question in terms of, I think every year we always ask you, who's your diamond in the rough? Who's your, maybe not a first or second round guy, but a third or fourth round guy that you think could project well at the NHL level that is not necessarily being focused on by everyone?
Yeah, there's always more than one player, Dave. There's always a number of players, and you watch different guys and you watch how they progress. And one of the guys that comes to mind is Henry Brustevich of the London Knights. His brother was a really good player, and he's in a great program, and I'm using Henry as an example because we're going to talk about Jacob Julian, right? And you watch somebody that's so good with the puck. Yeah, he needs work in his game. He's got to work. If he was a better skater, he'd be a definitive first round draft pick, but he's not. So you got to work. But he's thick and he's heavy and he's smart and he's competitive. And in another year's time, playing for Dale Hunter, there's no telling how good he could end up being. So that's certainly one player that I think is really good. There's two other players that I think, and they're both Swedish players, and I think they're both really good players. And they're not Milton Gastrin. I think is a first round pick all day long. I think that he's a guy that is going to be a player. Do I think he'd be a 50-point guy, 50-point in the NHL? Yeah, but I think he's going to help you win. And the other guy is Eddie Yenborg. Eddie Yenborg has one thing on his mind when he plays. He's fast, he's determined, and he punishes you. Like he is a player that all the good players in Sweden in his age group want to play with him because he's a guy. And I don't know if he'll go in the first round. He could go in the second round because there's so much to like there, but he's raw still. And I think you harness some of those things, and I think you could end up really getting a good solid player. One more player that I'll mention is Charlie Serrato from Penn State. It's amazing. I watched him at the NTDP for years. I go back and look at my notes, nothing really definitive. And then, you watch him in the USHL, okay. And then he comes to Penn State and he was decent last year. And then you watch him this year and you go, whoa, like, whoa. And he's going to get drafted. And I think that there's a lot of upside there with this young guy. And he's a perfect example of be careful. Everybody matures and develops at different rates. And here's a kid that's done exactly that. He's been really, really impressive for me.
All right. Well, this has been an impressive segment. We always love it and we always appreciate it. Just last one for you, Craig. And just in terms of Jacob Julien, I mean, he didn't necessarily produce a ton, but when he was talking to the media after the season, talked about how he worked on his two-way game. And one of the benefits for you is when you're watching the prospects, you see these guys as well. A guy, obviously, you watched before he had been drafted by the Jets. But from your perspective, winning the Memorial Cup, everything he was able to do, playing in that incredible London Knights team that didn't even lose. I think it was the Eastern when they lost to Oshawa was the first loss in the OHL playoffs. So they were unbelievable this year. But what can that do for him as he turns pro and gets his focus now ready to switch to being here in Winnipeg?
Well, you play for a great team. You play for a great coach. And you watch the three centers in London. Sam O'Reilly, who was a first-round pick by the Edmonton Oilers. You got Jacob Julien, who was sixth-round pick by the Winnipeg Jets. And then you have Will Nickel, who was a seventh-round draft pick by the Edmonton Oilers. I think they're all going to play. I think they're all going to play in the NHL because they have qualities that NHL teams need. I think Jacob Julien is a number 3, number 4 center, but he's fast, he's quick, he's aggressive, he's competitive, he's smart. So he knows how to play the game. And again, he's not going to be a big point producer. He's just that's not his skill set. But his game to go out there and negate other players and carry play for his team in significant parts of the game are really significant. He'll impose himself. And when you see players, I don't want to say this and be negative, but what the playoffs show you is who can help you win and who you hope can help you win. And with Jacob Julien, you're not hoping he can help you win. You know he can help you win. Now it becomes a case of taking him and developing him and allowing him to grow and allowing him to find his game and be that player. He did it in London. And the coaching that he got from Dale Hunter coming out of London is tremendous. Those players are all lucky in London to have Dale Hunter. And when you consider where he's at, where he got drafted and where he finds himself right now, it really is impressive. He's probably 18 months away from trying to find his way into a Winnipeg Jets lineup, but go to the Manitoba Moose, play in the American Hockey League. He knows the process. He's been patient with the process, but through the process, he has absolutely grown and developed.
Well, that's
music to Dave M's ears right there, Craig.
Well, I'll be spending a lot of time with him and the Moose next season, of course, as we cover them here on the show and on the website. So, Craig, we really always appreciate your time and your insight when you join us here on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show.
No talk about Hellebuyck winning the Hart. I had no doubt in March that he was the Hart Trophy guy.
Craig, we've already kept you for half an hour. I didn't want to keep you longer, but if you want to go into overtime, we're happy to go into overtime.
Yeah, we can do a couple of minutes. Sure.
Hellebuyck had my first place vote for the Hart. I saw your segment yesterday or the day before on TSN talking about your, because I think the question was put to you by Jay Onright as to whether you thought Hellebuyck was deserving. You were emphatic that you did, but sure, of course, we want to hear your opinion as to why you thought he deserved the Hart this year.
Well, it's so funny, when you think about it, and as we went through it, and you guys know the numbers. I mean, the last player to do what Connor Hellebuyck did this year was Bob Froese in 1985-86. And there's only 3 other goaltenders that have done what he did: Jacques Plante, Ken Dryden, and Bernie Perron, all in the Hall of Fame. So, and I had a lot of discussions, and this started post 4 Nations. I had a lot of discussion. Well, yeah, he's a goal. We get 50 goal scorers. If somebody scores 85 goals, we'll put them up there. What Connor Hellebuyck did this year for the Winnipeg Jets, it's largely unprecedented, and it's special. And that's most valuable player to me, in my mind, in so many different ways. And again, the voting process, and you hear things, and we're always talking. You're talking to people. And then I hear the thing, wow, I have a tough time voting for somebody that only plays 60 games. I go, well, how about if you look at it this way? Tell me what player in the NHL plays more minutes. That would be nobody, right? Like Connor Hellebuyck plays more minutes, right? And again, his impact on the team, well, they're a good defensive team. Well, yeah, because they have Connor Hellebuyck. And you need other elements, right? But when you look at what he did this season, and you look at like his performance and the numbers, they're eye-popping and they're not common. And that to me is a most valuable player. And I was there. I was there in early March, and I never wavered. And there's times when I'm not sitting here. I put my vote forward. I'm not sitting here saying, "Oh, I really wish that guy." But there's lots of good candidates. But this year, when it came to Connor, I was really hoping that others would recognize how special his season was. And when I saw that he'd won the Hart Trophy, it really put a big smile on my face. And the only smile bigger was from him and his family and Eric Comrie.
Yeah, I have to say I like the way the NHL did it this year. The way they presented the awards was very nice, and it allowed the families and friends to be involved in it. And it was there was a surprise element as opposed to the award show.
Yeah, it was unique, right? And it was different. So try something different and surprise the players. And, it was really neat. I thought it was really, really well done in the presentations to all of them. And again, when you think about where the Winnipeg Jets find themselves and, they go out in the second round of the playoffs, but this is a good team. This is a good team. And it's funny, after losing in that second round of the Dallas Stars, I feel stronger about their fortunes going forward now than I ever have. And I thought they could win the Stanley Cup this year, but I think they have a really good, strong team there. And now we'll see what happens with some of the off-season moves that Kevin Cheveldayoff will make, but this team isn't going away.
All right. Well, we're going to go away eventually, Craig, because it's time to go. We've used up enough of your time. Always appreciate your time and your insight here when you join us on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show.
Thanks, Dave. Thanks, Ezra.
Thanks so much, Craig.
Yeah.
There he goes. That's Craig Button of TSN.
Getting fired up for the 2025 draft, Dave.
Craig's list, the newest Craig's list, which won't have a lot of variability, he said, is coming out on Monday. And then, of course, we're going to be watching Craig and the crew when they break it all down. They'll do that draft show. And, of course, the draft's our favorite time of the year, Ezzy. It's the best weekend of the year. We covered extensively on illegalcurve.com. And, of course, we'll have a Saturday show. So we'll do that. We'll do it all. Well, we've gone into
This is a story I was going to say, Dave. This is, I believe, the second latest the Jets have ever selected, because Brad Lambert was 30th overall. Yeah. Right. So I believe this is the second latest the Jets have ever
30th
selected.
overall, because they wasn't that was their second pick that year, right?
Right.
Didn't they take, because they took
I'm just saying, like, I don't think I'm to the best of my memory, I don't think the Jets have ever selected in the 28 slot, because obviously the Jets are usually kind of in that. I mean, obviously Scheifele was 7th overall in 2011, but if you look at years after that, it was always kind of like 9, 10, 11, 13, right?
Right.
And then what was Connor, 17th overall, Dave, in 2015? And then you've had like Vesalainen and Lucius, who have been kind of in the 2021, but the Jets have never been in that late 20s range. Like I said, aside from Lambert, who was 30th. So just interesting. And obviously there's the big elephant in the room being Nikolaj Ehlers and whether he's going to sign, and are the Jets going to make any moves either at the draft or prior to the draft. There's a lot to be seen. I'm not totally, convinced that we won't see a signing before the draft, Dave. I wanted to get that in there. I'm not predicting it because I don't want to make that prediction, but you've got Gabe Valardi, you've got Dylan Samberg. I wouldn't be surprised if we see a little Dylan Samberg contract announced before the draft.
Interesting. Is that a Ginsberg guarantee?
No, it's definitely not a Ginsberg guarantee. I'm just saying I wouldn't be surprised.
All right. Well, I can tell you that they did they did draft Jack Roslovic 25th overall. So that was back in 2015. So they had Kyle Connor at 17th, and then Roslovic was at 25. Right. And then, you're right. And then whatchamacallit, I guess Vesalainen was 24th overall. So
was he 24th? I thought Vesalainen was more like early 20s, but
hold on, let me go check. I think he was 24th.
No, I trust you.
Yeah, 24th overall for Vesalainen.
That was the Nico Hischier draft.
Yeah, there's lots of that was the Ezzy is going to Chicago on an adventure draft is what we like to know it as.
Yeah, I remind everybody that was the year just to bring everybody top-notch draft coverage. I slept on the floor of the Duluth airport because I couldn't get basically, long story short, Dave and I were supposed to drive to Chicago, and Dave wasn't able to come. So I had to get a last-minute flight, which I think at the time was like $1,700 or something.
Yeah, something crazy. Yeah,
and I ended up having to go Duluth, Minneapolis, Chicago, and then the same on the way back. So I ended up having to sleep on the floor of the Duluth airport with nobody there because I had a connecting flight at like 7 a.m. to Minneapolis. But it was all worth it, Dave, because I got to go to Chicago, one of the best cities in the U.S., and cover the draft. So it was all worth it. And I'm excited to be covering the 2025 draft as well.
He does indeed, and he does indeed, and this is indeed going to be the end of this show. Well, it's been a good one, and Craig always provides phenomenal pre-draft insight for us. We always love having Craig on the show. So whether it's when he pops on randomly on the pregame because he's walking through with our friends at City Place, or because he is a guest. And so we love having him on. Christian Aumell, and of course, Sully. We got to mention Sully. They joined us in the first hour of the show. But that's about it for this one. As we talked about Nikolaj Ehlers, talked a little bit about Jonathan Taves, of course, talked about Connor Hellebuyck. Lots to discuss. There'll be more to discuss next week. And remember, if there's anything that really has to come up, like as he mentions, if one of these random, signings happen, then we'll be doing a special edition Illegal Curve show, of course.
I personally can't wait for that Samberg contract extension to drop. Like, I feel like I'm just going to be skipping around when the Jets sign that 8-year extension for Samberg. Like, I feel like I'm literally going to be just so pumped. As you know, Dave, he's one of my favorite players on the team. Let's be honest. He's my favorite player on the team. I'm not going to hide it.
He plays your style.
I'm not going to hide it. I'm not going to hide it. I got a man crush on Dylan Samberg. There, I admitted it.
There you go. Well, that's the first way to do it, as is you admit you have a problem, and then you can work on the solutions from there. Hey, you know what? I don't want to tease it just yet, but there could be the 25th, celebrating the 25 years of Manitoba Moose hockey. It's not going to necessarily be an end of season roundtable, Ezzy, but we may be.
Well, at this point, it's going to be a beginning of season roundtable.
True. I did delay a little bit. Of course, I blame the Jets, and they're going long in the playoffs. And I still haven't even posted the end of season media availabilities. I'm going to probably do that this week. Maybe tease it up, but we'll have something Moose related coming either this week or next. So that should be a lot of fun. There's a little tease. And like I said, if there's any reason for us to pop up and do a show, we'll do that as well. But hey, we've gone into overtime. It's time to let you get your Saturday started. So we'll thank you and all of our sponsors, of course, who make this show possible. And title sponsor, of course, being Play Now. So we appreciate them. We appreciate you. And make sure you smash that like button. Make sure you signed or checked the notification bell so you can make sure you're going to be aware each and every time the Illegal Curve Hockey Show goes live. But of course, that's usually 9:00 every Saturday. Ezzy Ginsberg, Dave Minuk, and usually Drew Mandel in this chair. He's not here today. He'll be back next week. All right, everyone. Thanks a lot for joining us. Thanks for spending your Saturday with us. We will be back next week. Same time, same place. See you then. Enjoy the rest of your week. Signing off for now.